1012, and it gives me 1,250.
Towards the becoming of your higher self.
This is the cause to become.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cause to Become podcast. I'm your host, Elijah Robert-Mahdi Soto. And today, this podcast might be a little bit different. We're going into some topics that require a good amount of care, thinking about doula work, birth work, homeschool. We're talking about homeopathic natural medicine and so much more. I really just want to open this conversation up to everyone in the audience to be able to use me as the person that's going to ask the questions that maybe we're afraid to ask, and also the questions that a lot of us maybe have that we're not sure where we can find those answers at. And so without further ado, I guess it's important that I just transfer everything over to our wonderful guest, expert, awesome person, mother, birth worker. She needs to introduce herself because she's going to give the full explanation of what's going on. So without further ado, Yaz, why the G, please tell the people about who you are, and also welcome to the Cause to Become podcast.
Thank you. Gratitude for being here. Such a beautiful platform where people get to show who they are. Yasmin Teresa Garcia Bay, also known as Why the G. I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a fourth generation Taino Arawak medicine woman, thanks to my great grandfather. I am a birth worker, a spiritual midwife, an author, and an educator. Yeah.
Awesome. And I feel like even those titles alone, like they don't fully encapsulate all the things you do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you're a birth educator. I just got to say, shout out for educating my mom on intuitive birth work. I think that's pretty cool. So I've seen firsthand like your coursework, how you really approach all this stuff. And then also, I mean, I see the testimonies firsthand. And I'm just truly honored actually to be here and almost a little bit nervous because I think, this is something where, hey, this is in a space that's with more of the feminine energy. As a man, I'm never going to give birth, right? And so I don't know a lot of these things. But I do know from the standpoint of like in the current day and age, a lot of young people or a lot of people are kind of waking up in a state of, out of a state of naivety into a state of awareness of what's really going on. And I think it can be overwhelming with how many lies, how many false things are starting to come to the surface and people are becoming aware of. And I think nowadays we see with someone just listing off a couple of things that kind of set the tone for why I feel like it's so important we really get into a lot of topics here is birth rate, infertility, that birth rate's declining, infertility. We're seeing a lot of the stuff after the pandemic, people's trust in overall the medical system, overall, a lot of government traditional systems is kind of degrading. And also we just see that now we're seeing like Gen Z coming up and they're at the age now, like in their 20s where it's like, hey, maybe we're thinking about having kids. But we also just found out that we don't trust the government. Mm-hmm. We just found out that the medical system is maybe not telling the truth all the time. And we are kind of aware of so many other truths that are coming to the surface about history, right? Mm-hmm. I know we can get into a lot about how the history is wrong, right? But it's like with that, I guess the question is, okay, babies don't stop being born.
No, they don't.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
now, every 9 seconds, a baby is still being born in America.
Yeah. And so I think one of the powerful things you said was like every household should have a birth worker in the house. Yeah. I was like, that's so awesome. But just kind of setting the stage there with all of these different things, infertility, lack of trust in the medical system. And then we're seeing people come into this who grew up in this state of high distrust, now coming into the age in which they're going to have children. And maybe they're thinking about having children. Maybe they already have children. This is the next one that's coming or something, right? But the information that the world has is so different now. And I think it's just important for people to understand what resources, what support, what is doula work? What is birth work? What is traditional medicine? Is it safe?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of really where I want to take it. And then also, one of the people that I think a lot of people have been exploring is Ina May Gaskin. And she's just awesome, right? And it was so cool. I watched some of her documentaries. I think she's been viral, or clips and stuff have been viral. And it's like, man, like, this is so possible. Not only is it so possible, it's how the entire world has been operating with, birth work, intuitive birth work, doulas, midwives. Like, and honestly, I just don't know. I really don't know, but I'm inspired and my heart knows that this is the way to move forward. So yeah, I guess I just want to open it up to start with, like, what got you into the birth working space? Then I'm going to ask about some definitions and
Yeah.
stuff, because I need to clear things up. So as much as you want to let us know how you got into be a birth worker and, why this means so much to you, yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. Well, I actually became a birth worker when I was 13 years old in middle school. I didn't know what it was at the time. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was definitely showing up under the definition of what a birth worker does. So I was in 8th grade. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, East New York. So, what we consider the hood, where there's not a lot of resources, or most of us were growing up as latchkey kids. So we were not really being guided or mentored as 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old, children. And in middle school at that time, I had a 14-year-old friend and a 16-year-old friend who within that same year of my 8th grade year were pregnant. And yeah, so to me, it was shocking because these girls are my peers. Like, we're in class together. We were literally in class together. And there were two different stories, one of which was the family was hiding it, very shameful about it. The other one was like also shameful, not necessarily hiding it, but they wanted to just kind of shut it down, end it. We're going to control the situation, end it without, the choice of the mom, the 16-year-old, friend of mine, who I am still friends with till this day.
Let's
And
go.
she's an amazing mother to 7 children now, 6 or 7. Yeah, so it was very important for me to support them, to actually be their friend, but also I've always had a natural inclination to kind of guide or educate. That being because I know myself and I know why now. As a life path number 6, we tend to be nurturers, we tend to be educators, we tend to be the wisdom keepers. So later on, I learned that, but I never was afraid to share information if I had it. And because they were pregnant and it just seemed like everybody was shaming them, I just wanted to be the one when I would see them in class, like, hey, I looked up in Wikipedia, or back then it was Microsoft Encyclopedia. I looked it up in my computer that this is what's happening to your body. These are your options. This is what you should be aware of. Just kind of giving them, in a sense, their like empowerment to not, like, even if they're being told what to do, at least they knew what was happening to their body for the sake of them being in control of the emotions, their spiritual process that everybody often neglects. Whether you're choosing to end that particular situation, or, even contraception, all these things. Like, I always said, even at that young age, that if women and men, boys and girls, knew how their body worked, then they were more in control of it. Then you could be safer. Then you can be more organized or planning of when you wanted certain things to happen, like procreation.
Yeah, it's a big thing. And I think that's just so powerful, because not only do you have the expertise that you've accumulated by getting, the certifications or studying and doing all those things, but I think a big part of what you talk about is like the intuitive piece. And it seems as if it was innately within you to be someone who's tending to women in this difficult time, even from an early age.
And I didn't learn about why until I was actually in my 20s, late 20s. But by the time I was 16, my oldest sister got pregnant. And I was like, this is somebody really close to me, like in my house. So she was 21 at the time, but I immediately was like, wow, it's super close. Now I get to really see it in real time in how it's dealt with in my family. And then I ended up, trying to help her out as well. And by the time I went to college 2 years later, I thought I was going to take a shortcut to study fashion to pay for like my medical school or whatever, stuff like that. That was my, at that time, poverty minded thinking of like, I'm good at with the arts. I can do stuff with my hands, like sewing and, you know, creating garments and stuff. But then I realized immediately in my freshman year of college in San Francisco, depressed in a college dorm, I just made the biggest mistake. Like I literally started watching documentaries about birth, about nutrition, and just learning more even about my own culture, my indigenous culture. And being away from home, from New York to San Francisco, not knowing anybody, just kind of uprooting myself at 17, trying to figure more about myself, which travel does that to you. So I encourage everybody to travel and just experience life in moments alone so you can really hear yourself and learn yourself. That's when I realized, wait, this is what a birth doula is, or I don't call it doula because that name itself is also, what does it mean?
Yeah, well, I think I want to get into that.
Yeah.
But also, real quick, I forgot to give you a gift.
Ooh,
So
I love gifts.
yeah, we're gonna give you a Cause Become hat here, so you can kind of wear it. The whole thing behind the brand is about becoming the highest version of yourself, causing the becoming of your highest self. And so we put the crown on. It's like the king, the queen, the highest version of yourself. And it also feels like an honor if you were to ever wear this. You know, it means a lot because I know that you're literally helping bring new life into the world. And I think the whole concept, what we want to do here is by creators and for creators. No greater creator than you, and then a mother, and then all of the women that you're helping, and the creationary process that's kind of occurring throughout all this. And yeah, so it's a big honor for me. You don't have to wear it. If you do,
No,
it would
I
mean a
will.
lot.
When I wear my braids, I will, because
Hey,
curly
okay.
hair don't really
There
do
we go.
hats.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So I think that's perfect. Like, I feel like, okay, this is something that's intuitive for you. This is innate for you. You tried to stray off the path and do
Yeah.
something that you thought, and you said poverty mindset, but I think it's like you were just doing what you knew, what you thought would work.
My intuition. And then I
Yeah.
learned that my great grandfather was a midwife. And my grandmother was a medicine woman.
Let's go.
And then I became pregnant with twins. And then I got initiated into my real role of, this is who you are. You can't even fight this anymore. Try to take shortcuts. And I just, had been serving now as a birth doula, like 6 years prior to becoming pregnant myself. And then when I became a mother, it just kind of, now it's time to teach.
Yeah.
Now it's like you really see what's missing.
Yeah. And speaking on teaching, like, I guess I want to dive into it more where, and again, this comes from my own ignorance a lot of places, case, but like, what is a doula? What is a midwife? What's the difference? What kind of in those things there. So I guess like
Yeah.
starting off, like, what is a doula?
So a doula, which I don't use that term in my practice because I use the term minister of childbirth, or birth worker, birth keeper, just in the more traditional setting or way. But a doula is a Greek word for slave. And in other contents, the Greek word for servant, or midwife, meaning a woman that walks with women, a woman that's guiding women through her initiations, through her transformation into motherhood. And in the medical term, or in the way it's used now in modern day colonization, the doula is the birth coach. She educates, she guides spiritually, mentally, and physically. From conception up until maybe 1 year postpartum, she's helping you through pregnancy, nutrition, emotional, stability, just helping you understand what's happening to your body and how all these changes could affect you and your partner and your family unit, and how to kind of prepare for this new spirit, this new soul joining your family.
Yeah.
So the birth worker, the doula, is really just like the birth coach, but it's not just for labor and delivery. It's throughout the whole initiation into motherhood, whether it's the first child or the seventh child, and really helps incorporate the father in this experience, which in the past, in a certain period history of America or the USA, they didn't allow men in these spaces. right? Once they took away the ability for midwives to be the ones to catch the babies. Midwives have always been the medical provider, always.
Yeah.
They've been the nutritionist, they've been the chiropractor, they've been the educators.
I just want to clarify something, just simply because I'm not sure, because for me, it almost seems like doula and midwife are interchangeable.
They used to be.
Okay, they used to be. So speaking to like and also you talked about like colonization and stuff. I would like to like, this is a chance, I think, in what we're learning the truth. It's like we're trying to like decolonize people's minds, right? And it's, you know, devoid of how people think about it. I think a lot of times when they hear like, oh, colonization, they're like, will immediately like kind of write things off in terms of the gravity and seriousness and level of, I guess, you know, real objective fact that's occurring here. And it's like our mind, I feel, has been colonized by so many lies, so many half truths, misinformation, disinformation. You know, we saw, you know, during the pandemic and through a lot of things that there were so many things that the government, the CDC, all these people told us, and health officials, and they were just like false. They were lies. They weren't correct, and people started to come quickly to that realization. So, you know, I think I want to use this as like this truth that you're speaking from, as from the indigenous roots you have, from your knowledge, from your experiences, like being able to really help decolonize people's minds of this misinformation and disinformation. And I think a part of it is like being able to get some structure and to get their bearings, especially for a young person, maybe even a man, right? Is like when they talk about doula and midwife, they're different now, right? So how do I guess people commonly differentiate between doula and midwife today?
Yeah, the midwife is the medical provider who's able to catch babies, check vitals, do pelvic exams, and they make sure you get your lab work in a laboratory that they're in connection with. They have perhaps a nursing background, or in my, you know, more, what would be the word to say, like not like a nurse midwife, but like a certified professional midwife, a CPM. They're more trained in like emergency medicine, not always have a nurse background, like a nurse degree.
Yeah.
But because there's a few different pathways to midwifery in modern day.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the doula, the birth worker, is not a medical professional. She's not providing any medical services. She's educating about all the options, all the resources, and all what's needed for the mom to be taken care of medically. She's knowledgeable in it. She more than likely studies it.
Yeah.
And just helps the mom make all those decisions.
Wow. Okay, that really makes a lot more sense for me, because I kind of always thought of it as like, you know, I'm used to thinking about birth, and it's like, okay, mom goes to the doctor, to the hospital, and then the doctor's the one who delivers a baby, the nurses help out, you know, that type of thing. Sad. It's truly sad that that's my knowledge, but
Because doctor is very vague.
Yeah.
Very vague.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just being real, right?
Yeah.
And so now this helps me to see, okay, so the doula is someone who comes in to be able to be not only helping the mother through like the pregnancy piece, because I'm thinking like, oh, she's the one that's like helping deliver the baby. That's the midwife. The midwife is the one who's more in the kind of a little bit more involved in the medical piece, helping deliver the baby, helping check on like the, you know, baby's heart rate and measurements.
That's the midwife.
That's the midwife. That's the midwife.
That's the midwife,
Yeah,
yes.
so that's the midwife. And so the doula is the one who's there, who's supporting the mother, and
Educating.
she's educated. So that's huge, because that means like that's really what I feel like. I hope this podcast can serve like that, right? Because someone who's thinking about having kids, you know, they're like, okay, what are our resources? What the heck is all this stuff? You know, if I want to have a home birth, a water birth, what's the difference? All that stuff. So the doula is coming in with a wealth of knowledge and resources. And so basically it's like the holistic chat GPT for birth, right?
And even more so, the birth worker, the doula, is going to be the spiritual guide. She basically walks through that portal with mom and dad.
Yeah.
Whereas the midwife has to be more, the doula is more in that feminine energy.
Yeah.
She's more in that intuition. She's more in that spirit. Whereas the midwife has to be in her logical mind because she's dealing with somebody's vitals. She's dealing with somebody's life. She's dealing with statistics and, you know, emergency medicine techniques that if something happens, what medicine the mom might need or etc. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like that beautiful balance when there's a collective effort, a birth team that's working with mom and the family.
That's super. That again, kind of really helping me to make sense of this because I told you what my understanding was.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
embarrassing. So, but okay, so the doula is able to be more in her feminine. And okay, backing up a little bit, the spiritual piece. I know Ina May Gaskin's book is Spiritual Midwifery,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that seemed to be like a really impactful, powerful book. I'm not gonna lie, I just kind of spark notes the summary of it, but
I love that. I love that.
But I think it's like that's something that people should read. Would you vouch for that?
Well, it's one of the texts that I use in my intuitive birth worker training. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And I also studied in the farm.
Oh, no way.
I did. I
Let's
didn't
go.
study with her though. Yeah. No, I was really, really privileged to get a chance to study in doing a advanced midwifery training in 2015, and I didn't get to study with her because she was no longer living in the farm. But I got the best of all the other Pamela Hunt, Salama, which is one of our Black midwives originally from New York, who also was there in the farm in the 70s. And it was an impactful experience to really connect with what my people did, even though they weren't it wasn't necessarily my indigenous people teaching it. But when we're teaching from that space of spirituality and knowing that birth and creation is a spiritual experience, is an initiation, not just a physical, medical emergency, because that's not what it is. It was beautiful to really connect with that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
We use that text though, yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that because the spiritual piece to this is so big. I mean, I just from my understanding, when I was hearing Ina May Gaskin recount her initial experience with why she started spiritual midwifery and the whole practice of it was, I mean, I couldn't even fathom what she was talking about, where they would literally strapped her down.
Yeah.
And by the way, to clarify, she was married for 6-7 years. This isn't like they're treating some person who's
Right. Like a single mom.
Yeah, young single
yeah.
mom. By the way,
Yeah.
that's
Nope,
where I came from. That's where a lot of people came from. Yeah. So, but anyways,
she was full married.
yeah, fully married, and they're strapping her down. Everyone comes in with the mask. The doctors are using the forceps delivery. And it's
Abusive.
abusive, and it just seems so cold, so detached, so like, let's extract this thing out of your body. It seemed like a disregard for the mother's sovereignty and autonomy. It seemed like the baby was being I mean, it almost just made it seem like the concept of the Matrix, right? Where it's like baby comes out, immediately gets a social security number, immediately tagged with this, vaccines, this, that, Hep B spread on the eye, whatever these things are that, it's like, it was just like, whoa, this is like, I don't even know if I were to watch a zoo delivery of a zoo animal.
You would never see that happen with animals.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, imagine if a dog is giving birth and you just like saw someone tie the dog down and use all these things, and it's like you just kind of like sit there and you just pet the dog and you're just like loving her. I've been there with a lot of animal births.
I mean, it says a lot about a society where animals get treated with more kindness and respect and autonomy than humans.
Yeah, and it was so like her recounting of it was so cold, and I know that's like maybe the hospitals have changed, maybe the doctors are a little bit nicer, but realistically, because I was there for my little sister's births as well, and so like I experienced, and yeah, it's like very medical. It's very like not even medical, like statistical, in and out, kind of like it's like so cold and so detached, and
very
it's
commercial.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me because, again, you've already experienced all this, right? So I'm going through the first time. This is crazy, But, yeah, but like, it was just so like, whoa, this is if I'm like the husband, right? Like, this is my wife that I love, or this is the person I love. This is, the child. Like, this is life that's coming in, and also, this should be something where it's like a beautiful, happy, joyous thing. There's not a single person that came not from a mother, not from a delivery,
Right.
not from a birth. So it's like, what the heck? How is this something that's people often think of as so cold, so no spirit attached to it? It seemed as if so detached from like, shouldn't this be a happy, loving, fun, beautiful thing that the mother is revered for, that the family celebrates. Don't you want your baby to come out like happy and knowing love, not like pried out like you're popping a pimple or something? Like,
Right.
I mean, seriously. So
Right.
I would love for you, before we kind of go a little bit more into things, to talk about how you include the spiritual piece in this, and the importance of the doula being able to provide that spiritual component, and a midwife who's trained in this stuff as
Yeah.
well. 'Cause I think that's so huge.
Yeah. Well, now we're seeing a lot of hospitals close. A lot of across the country, we're seeing a lot of hospitals close, and a lot of their maternity wards, maternity units, departments are shutting down, defunded. I mean, just a few months ago, I was speaking with a really big university, and I was asking about their maternity program. And they were like, yeah, we just shut down last year. We're no longer being funded. We had to completely shut it down, like a certified nurse midwifery program. And I was like, wow, like who in that area, in that state, like what are you guys turning to? And so it's really interesting to see how things change in waves and cycles, but it's always dependent on the leadership of ourselves, because we are the ones who are co-creating with each other. We cannot do it alone as women. We need the men to be informed. We need the men to want the safety and peaceful experience that childbirth can be, as much as the woman wants it, right? For the sake of their relationship, for the sake of that well-being and upbringing of that child. And there is places that still exist as far as midwifery centers, where people are choosing a lot more either to give birth at home with midwives, or in particular birthing centers where where you go in there's a birth doula, there's the midwife, and you could either bring in your own birth worker that you hire privately and choose to do it, choose to give birth at home or choose to give birth at the birthing center. There's not many, but they're still existing. In fact, there's more of that, almost as they're popping up more, because the hospitals are not the main resource right now. Especially since 2020,
Yeah.
a lot of things have changed, where a lot of people were giving birth in 2020. There was I believe it was like a 30% spike in people now giving birth at home, just because they didn't trust the hospitals to be safe to give birth. And when you look at the history of hospitals, for the most part, they started as like psychiatrical units or psychiatrical institutions, or a place where you really go to die, not to be born. And in the words of the famous Toni Morrison, back then, only prostitutes would go give birth in hospitals because they didn't have a family to give birth at home with.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is, especially as melanated people, we've always lived in community and trusted community to show up for the beginning of your life and the end of your life. It wasn't something that we expected an institution or government assistance to help us through these rites of passages, which is what it is. It's very spiritual. And when we start to take that out of it, we dehumanize ourselves. And this goes for men and women. So both of us have to want it. Both of us, men and women, have to be autonomous in that way and choosing of the safety of our children coming in. And to be honest, it's the same with the end of life care. It's the same. And now we have a generation of baby boomers that are a huge generation that are going to be really without care. Okay. So that's
Yeah.
gonna, it's almost like we have to kind of cover those two bases right now of like, are we creating a safe space for welcoming life and ending of life right now in 2025?
That's so okay. You educated my mom on some of her intuitive birth worker training through your course and through everything that you offer. By the way, everyone, if you're interested in this, women, you should absolutely go check it out. We'll talk more about it. But an understanding I had was, my mom's like really excited. She's like telling me about what she learned and giving me all this, and she's doing all her own research and stuff. The death part of it, like death doula, birth doula, that really helped me to understand that it's not about birth and death, but rather about like a soul, a living, that kind of spark of life coming into the world and then, going out of the world. And it's kind of that pulsation of like that breath, the in and the out. And I think a lot of people are scared to talk about death because they're scared, right? They're just scared to die, and they're scared to think about what that means. And it also is scary because when you think about death in like an inevitable way and acceptance as a part of life, I think a lot of people realize how much of the things they prioritize in their life are predicated on a worldview that doesn't think about them dying, right? Like material aggregation, all this stuff. You're like, okay, well, you were born as a baby. You didn't have these things. You didn't have the Lamborghini in the house, and then this, and the nice, Louis Vuitton bag, and you didn't have all these accolades and all these certifications and all this. You just were born. You had your mother's love. Right. I think love is the one thing, hopefully.
Right. I would hope.
Yeah. And then when you go, it's the same thing. And so I think it takes some maturity to really think about these things, and it takes some realization of our own mortality. But another component too is when we do pass, what did our children learn? What did the people that are around us who are young learn so that they can have this information, so that they can continue to live a fulfilled life? They can impart this on others, right? So part of what you're doing with the educational piece of all this is so huge. Propagating of information, I think, is powerful and important because, like you said, the baby boomers are a huge generation that's dying off. We see many of the baby boomers' decisions were terrible in life.
Right.
Maybe because they didn't have a doula helping them through their forceps delivered and all this stuff, so that must have been tough.
Yeah.
Maybe I can't blame them now, actually, for their bad decisions.
And the men were kept outside
Yeah.
for that reason. You
Yeah.
imagine a man seeing his wife in those predicaments?
They were kept outside intentionally because strong actual men
Yes.
who care about their women would choke a doctor out.
And I've
seeing
seen
this.
men behave in that way when they feel that their wife is being hurt. In when I used to do hospital births.
Yeah, so all of it's about like neutering of the traditional norms, I feel like. And that's something that's really frustrating. It gets me passionate. I think like it's really powerful, the birth and death piece of all this, but it's also more of that spiritual component. And it's something that we need to reinstill. And you are on the front lines of doing this. And this isn't something that is going to have all the credentials and certifications and all this, because we've already realized a lot of that stuff is fake, is false. This is coming from me. Like, I have an Ivy League degree, biology. I was working biotech and pharma. I knew, like, I know the endpoints on studies, clinical trials, phase 1, phase 2. I understand what this is like. I'm very well versed in the background and the medical side of all this stuff. The pharmaceutical intervention, the biotech stuff, a lot of it doesn't work. A lot of the endpoints are manipulated to be able to show some degree of benefit and improvement. And I'll speak to that myself. You don't have to vouch for it. I'm just being real. Placebo is a hell of a benchmark to beat, because our body has the ability to heal itself in a very powerful way.
Yes.
And most things aren't beating placebo. Most of the time we're designing these drugs, we're designing these things in a way in which we can get approval, we can make money on the drugs, and we're not looking at actually helping fix the underlying issues of this. It's a lot of symptom stuff. So it seems like with the birth and with any type of thing that's like some type of medical intervention, we're always looking to make it more palatable to look at, more aesthetic, and to make it something where there's a financial incentive behind it, and we're able to, make it work in this capitalistic kind of system. Because I'll just ask you, how much does it cost now to deliver a child in a natural or a traditional Western hospital birth? Do you know?
So it really depends what part of the country you're in, but you're looking at from $3,000 for midwifery care, from full to postpartum. From conception to postpartum. So 3,000 to 3,000 being like in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at maybe 5,000 in New York. Mm-hmm. Almost up to 12,000 in California.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I'm talking about in the hospital, because in like that traditional, but I've heard to deliver a baby, it's somewhere like $30,000.
So they kind of add on, and there was a video on TikTok I saw that there was a lady, I think she was a physician's assistant. She was calling centers to see how much it costs, even for like epidural and all these things. And now they have things that are like a base price of like maybe $6,000 to $9,000, and then everything else is a la carte. So is an additional add-on for pain meds, for epidural. It's an additional add-on for breastfeeding. Yes,
Bro.
for skin to skin, they'll charge you maybe like $400 just for the yes.
Okay, so see, you're talking about a natural biologic process, a natural process here that has now been broken down into these itemized pieces so that now the insurance company can bill X, Y, and Z and mark up this.
Yes.
And that's just absolutely crazy to me. Now, I started this talking about like me and how I understand like the pharmaceutical piece, the background. I have an Ivy League biology degree. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what else you need, guys. You know, like,
Right.
you know,
And still you learn more in your travels and just your
oh yeah,
independent study.
no, it's just
Yeah.
to say that the status quo
Yeah.
of the current medical like play, the current, you know, the current system we have in place doesn't teach you about any of this stuff. I have an Ivy League biology degree working in pharma and biotech, and I'm like the doctor. You go to the doctor, and you know the nurses help you deliver the baby, and you do your checkups, and you just listen to the doctor.
Well,
right?
why would I teach you? Why would I give you the information? I mean, if you're not calling into these places to find the details and to know that there's a different price if you're paying cash or if you're paying with insurance and copay, right? Why would it would not benefit me to teach you
Well, yeah.
for you to make your own decisions?
I want to be ignorant. If I'm ignorant,
I
then
can't
you're
control you.
Exactly.
And if I put it in a book, most people won't open it up to find the answer. So
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It seems like that you want a naive kind of audience. So then the woman,
it's just business.
yeah, but
That's
it's
how commerce works.
sure, but we're talking about the business of like human life, and that's where you get into slavery. And now I don't like it. You know,
It just looks better now. It's more pretty. Slavery has just transformed into work,
Yeah.
jobs,
yeah.
institutions.
So I think the spiritual piece about that you're including in it is so important because it is spiritual, and that's what we are needing to rely on because the certificates, because all the traditional system
Yeah.
type of stuff has honestly failed us. I believe it's failed us. That's my statement because with my knowledge, my expertise, and my understanding, I did not know about any of this. And then once the government recommendations go, now we're living in the Wild West again. Who do I go? How do I know what's right? Should I do a home birth? Because I don't trust the people at the hospital. So should I say, okay, a home birth would be better for my family, or obviously it's her decision too, right? But what am I thinking about there? What's a water birth? What's not? Do we bring in a doula? Do we bring in a midwife? What does that look like? Then I'm like, okay, then God willing, we get to the place where now the baby's born, and what are we doing with vaccines? What are we doing with, I've heard about this pinprick where like the heel
On the child, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I didn't even know about that. And then you have to think about circumcision or not. If it's a boy, it's like, okay. And we're just at like the baby being born. This is like week 6.
No,
week
this
tw-
is within hours.
Okay.
All those decisions need to be made within hours, which is why we would be educating you throughout those 9 months before you have to be in that environment, whether it's at home or in the hospital, which both environments provide options and different options in a hospital and different options at home.
Yeah.
Depending on who's your medical provider, your midwife. But all those decisions have to be made within that first 2 hours of delivery. And if you're not prepared or if you don't know what your options are, you absolutely feel stripped and robbed of your autonomy, of your spiritual experience, of your rights, human rights.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so big because I'm just thinking about all those decisions and it seems overwhelming. I can't imagine
It
now
is.
my wife or the person who's with me, who's, rearing or taking this, holding this child and like gonna give birth is like, that's so much going through her brain, so many choices and decisions. And it's like, at what point does she just get to enjoy being pregnant and like,
I
right?
would say the best way to enjoy pregnancy and delivery is to be prepared prior to conception.
Yeah.
To be
Huge.
educated prior to becoming a father, right? To be educated prior to getting pregnant. It's important because then there's less of that, stress and fear of like time is running out for me
Yeah.
to all of a sudden become, a nurse in your head just to understand these terminologies and these processes, like you want to be educated. I believe this since I was in middle school, if you're having sex or if you can get pregnant or can get somebody pregnant, meaning let's be honest, we kind of have to start conversations much younger in today's day.
Yeah.
But if you are already able to get pregnant, these conversations should be happening. Because if you're a 12-year-old girl, 10-year-old girl, God forbid something happens to you that's out of your control, that somebody abuses you, here are the things that you now have to start making decisions on at 12 years old. And because nobody spoke to you about your body, about how your body works, about your sexual organs, about your ability to procreate. Do you know what I mean? Like there's middle
100%.
schoolers who are having sex.
No, 100%.
You know, so it's like scary, but these conversations have to, is our responsibility as parents, is our responsibilities as communities to make sure that we're not ashamed of having these conversations, because it's human biology, it's physiology. We have to.
Yes. And it goes back to, because this whole concept is like predicated on this, like this life force, this soul, right? That's a spiritual piece to this. Is it goes, why does no one want to write their will? Why does no one want to think about death?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Because they're scared.
Yeah.
And they want to live in this fake society or this fake life where it doesn't happen. Well, when it comes to birth, so you're just going to promote, every song is going to be like, yeah, you know, like bitches and all this stuff. All these things you're going to talk about, like love songs and romantic stuff. Everyone's, you know, thinking about all these different things where we see so much like OnlyFans, so much like sexual component to our society. Then yet it's predating upon the innate perversion in it, because people are treating sex as something that's just, you know, fun and something that's leisurely with no potential repercussions. Well, sure, that can be the case, but also let's be real. We're all living here. We're all going to die. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Every time you're going to, you know, you're having sex, you can have a child. What does that even mean? What does birth mean? This is just me, because I feel frustration with young people, or people my age, who are like not thinking this through, and they're not understanding the sacredness of bringing life into the world. They're not understanding the sacredness of sex, of like intimate connection and relationships. And it's like it's ruining the minds of people, because they're afraid to think about that. They're living in this fake world where everything has to be perfect, where people are just gonna, oh yeah, just pop a plan B and get back to rolling, you know, get back to doing your thing. Like, oh, just get an abortion and then, you know, just come right back. And that's not to say shame or hate or whatever people do. You know, I have my own opinions. People have their own opinions. That's fine. But it's more about this society in which it's like, oh, you just have a couple of months and then you get right back to work. And it's like,
Nobody speaks about the implications of that.
Nobody speaks about the breastfeeding. No one talks about, now we have a whole entire economy. I was seeing something where like they gave free breast milk only for the time. There was a certain country that gave free breast milk only for the time that it would make so that the mother would stop producing milk, and then they made the people buy the company made the mothers buy the breast milk. Then after that, it's like a super marketing tactic there to literally, and it's
That's incredible.
It's just like all these things that you see with like, what's in this formula that's going on? Why did we think that we can just create something that's better than what the child has been drinking, what humans have been born and raised from for thousands of years, our entire, what's going on, this soy-based stuff, all these things. It's just like so much, it seems like all at once, that people get hit with this like ball of like, oh, wake up to reality. And you're like, you know, young, maybe you're a teenager, maybe you're early 20s. And it's just like, oh shit. And it's like
40.
Yeah, for real. But it's just like, you get hit with this. And then the entire pregnancy, the entire process is like you having to literally heal trauma, come of age, educate yourself in like 9 months, hopefully. And you're just like, holy shit, at what point did we just get to like, you know, chill and enjoy this sacred, beautiful thing? Like time is linear. It's only progressing one direction. We don't get these things back. So that's where my frustration and all this, my emotional piece comes into all this. But yeah, I think what you're doing is so powerful and so important. And it makes me understand that the importance of a doula is now to be able to guide and to have that resources, to have that information, to have all that there, and to connect with that spiritual piece to the birth. And then the midwife is there, who's the one where a man, I think, is oftentimes like, we need a doctor there, you know, like we need someone. And it's like, we need to have that midwife is the person who brings the logical, the medical, all that.
She is the medical. She is the doctor.
And
you know, although it might not be licensed with a PhD, but I mean, you travel around the world and you meet midwives who take care of full-blown communities, generations after generations. I know midwives in other countries who've never seen a baby deceased.
Yo, that's
over
gangster.
60 years, never seen babies deceased. These are the experiences of traditional midwives around the world sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we have to be more mindful of where we find or where we look for our research. We should never be linear with our research. We should never be closed-minded to the education that we're receiving. If you're finding this, information about who to choose and who to work with and who to hire for your wellness, to guide you through your wellness, because it is autonomous that you have to, take responsibility of. You should absolutely always seek options. Even in my own practice, when people want to hire me to serve them as their minister of birth, I always say interview 3 more people, because it needs to be an energetic connection that we have. You need to feel safe with me. Your child is choosing me. Your partner needs to trust me as a guide, as an educator, not as somebody who's going to replace them in that childbirthing space and journey. So it's very important that we take responsibility for where we find our information, and at the end of the day, make our own, informed decision. And that's something we say a lot in our, birthing community. That's our job. Make informed decisions and teach you how to.
Exactly. And that's the biggest thing when we think about this is we want to make informed decisions.
Yeah.
People want to make the right decision. I think people want to do the right thing for their child and for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think people have a good heart and they want to do the right thing. The unfortunate thing is you've grown up raised to believe that the right thing is trusting the doctor.
Well, if you've been suppressed your whole life to not trust your own intuition, to not trust your gut, then you would go with the wave. You would go with what people say is right.
But do you see what I'm saying? It's like yes, I agree, but it's so difficult when the status quo of when you're sick, what do? You go to the doctor. When something's wrong, what happens? You go to the doctor. Trust the doctor. That's what the doctor said. The unfortunate thing now is we have just been confronted, my generation specifically, everyone, but my generation, because we were really plugged in. The medical people are lying and they are not presenting the correct information. And it's a ploy of manipulation, propaganda, and all these things. So now I don't trust anything you said. I mean, let's just start there, right? People are going to fully reject everything. Obviously, I trust some things. I know some things, but and other people do. But say you just reject all of it. Then you want to make an informed decision about how you're going to go about birth, what you're going to do, all the things we talked about. Do we hire Y the G? Do we hire, who what do we do here?
I'm like, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. Why did you not call them? No, I don't take everybody.
No, it's exclusive. Yeah, you better, write that check. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's got to be the right vibes.
Yeah, vibe. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
But no, it's that's a part of it. It's okay, how do you get informed? So a part of this is you were in the trenches, straight up figuring this out, reading the books. I want to talk about that maybe is to say when someone's thinking about birth, when someone's thinking about this now they've been presented with all these things where they know that they need to learn. How do they get educated? What should they do? Where should they be reading? Where should they be looking up? What can they trust? And then the concept of intuition here, right? I mean, that's obviously the main discernment piece.
Trust yourself. Yourself will guide you in the right way as long as you're doing it for your higher self, right? To ensure that, one of the things, especially that a lot of us are really coming to, it's what makes me feel safe and what makes me feel joyful. If I'm in school and what they're saying in school, I'm sitting there feeling like I'm wasting my time, wasting my money. This is BS. I'm not being seen, heard, or understood. I'm thinking a little bit outside of the box. Then that place is not for you. Then you need to look for different alternative ways of learning. Whether it's, some of the biggest change makers, most of them, all of them, they don't have degrees because they were the black sheeps of the family, because they were the ones that, explored outside versus just in one little room. They explored books. They explored different perspectives. And to be honest, Gen Z, which is what you say, that's your generation? Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm Gen Z.
Yeah, so
I'm 25.
Yeah, I do believe that I'm a millennial, so we have half old school, half new school. But I do believe that you guys see the world a little bit more expansive than us, although you could be limited to the technology of it all. Y'all need to touch grass, of course. Y'all absolutely need to go put your hand in some soil. But you also have the opportunity to travel in ways that we're still learning coming up, right? So there's an opportunity where Gen Z is getting to be a little bit more autonomous by seeing so many different options, by seeing social media and seeing so many different perspectives and worldviews and opinions. And y'all can't just be manipulated because y'all actually have different, truths being told, different realities that you can exist in. And that's the beauty of it, that you get to choose. Whereas we millennials, for in a sense, or some people in certain families or cultures, we get programmed, right? But there's no excuse anymore as to where can I find the education or where can I find the knowledge. It's out there. It's whether we're making a choice or not. And when we speak about the younger generation, they're being bombarded when things happen. Well, it's really not their fault, because it's the older generation always our responsibility to guide the young, right? I mean, I was 22
Yeah.
years old teaching younger children, teaching high school students, right? I was 24 years old when I had a 15-year-old girl that was pregnant. Not 15, she was 12 years old. She was pregnant, and they called me because I had showed up in their middle school to do a talk about birth work. And the teacher was like, hey, can you support this 12-year-old who's, from another country? She doesn't really speak the language. Who's teaching these children in schools or at home or in the community centers about these things? It is our responsibilities, the older people, the next generation up. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, first off, that's why you're a G. Okay, respect. But also, I mean, here's the fundamental issue is I think maybe so then because you're going to get a lot of Gen Z clients, right? Like this is just happening now. We don't, we're looking at this system and we're seeing like we don't trust any of this. And not only do we not trust any of it, we can't trust any of it because the people who are providing it grew up in a different reality.
Absolutely.
And the things that they're still living and operating as if they trust these things. And we're like, listen, you're like showing us the facts, showing us the statistics, showing us the papers. I'm sorry, man. I know how to read a scientific paper very, very well, better than all of you, and like
Peer review.
yeah, like I know how to look up this stuff. It doesn't matter how well I read it when it's based on lies, when it's based on manipulation, when the endpoints aren't demonstrating actual efficacy, when we're thinking about actually just symptom reduction and amelioration and pacification and reduction in hospitalizations and making it so that it's something that's reducing the overall economic and financial burden of the insurer, not about actually caring about my family and people and the health and wellness of what's going on. So I don't care if you're talking to me about the statistics say this or this, that, whatever. Sorry, the statistics said a lot of things that you just told us, and those are false. So I don't know. Maybe we need to change how we're approaching this argument because I'm not trying to win it on statistics. I'm trying to make sure that my family, that my child, that my wife, that all these people are doing well and they're healthy. So then I'm like, okay, well, screw y'all. Hey, Yaz, what's the deal? Like talk to me about the intuition,
right.
because and like you also have the understanding of all this.
Yeah.
But like that's the piece where it's like we need to really understand this from that spiritual setting, from like and so I want to talk more about a lot of things too when it comes to like the holistic homeopathic medicine, all that as well, and then homeschooling and all these things. So yes, I want to dive into that. I think that the best way to do it would be to just kind of talk about how you work with someone from conception or when they're first finding you, and then into the end pregnancy and then delivery, and then what kind of works like we'll speed it up and we'll kind of go into what it's looking like in terms of people choosing homeschooling or not, and what preschool stuff looks like, what childcare looks like, and then we'll kind of go into further from there with like holistic homeopathic stuff as well, because I think I want people to understand the full process of bringing life into the world and how you approach even teaching and educating children from a young age as they get older. I think those things are super important. If we'll take a kind of a quick break right here and I'll use the restroom and then we'll go ahead and come back in. We can go through that more. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right, cool. Well, good to be back here kind of after our break. And I think now we can kind of dive in more to a little bit of a linear progression of what it's like from conception, inception of like a new soul life coming into this world, and then going through the process of pregnancy, birth, and then talking about, you know, educating and raising a child in a new way, in a way with that they're an autonomous soul. And I know that you speak a lot about the entirety of the birthing, pregnancy process, as well as homeschool, as well as how you educate the child, and also about homeopathic, holistic medicine, herbal medicine, all those types of things. So it might be kind of a lot to tackle, but I want to just jump into it and just kind of give the floor to you now to walk us through what that's like, what your recommendations are, how you would suggest maybe, you know, a new mom start to think about this in her head and realize what decisions she needs to start making and thinking about.
Yeah. So let's say immediately somebody finds out they're pregnant. The main thing that I would suggest any mom to focus on, or even if they're trying to conceive, and I get those questions a lot, like, I'm trying to get pregnant, what should I do? And I've helped women over 40 get pregnant using the intentional change of their nutrition. So we have to understand that food is medicine. Medicine is our food. And besides love, it is something that we really need, right? Love, oxygen, food. And so when you are eating right in a society that has food that is inorganic and a lot of it is deprived of actual minerals and vitamins, we now have to lean towards consuming superfoods or just an array, a huge balance of different foods to maintain a healthy stasis, right? So if you're trying to get pregnant or you just get pregnant, my encouragement is going to be, what is your diet? I do have a background in dietetics, which is the science of nutrition, which is funny because then later on I learned that I come from an agriculturist. Like, my great-grandfather used to be the medicine man, the midwife, but also he tended to the land. He grew the food. He grew the herbal concoctions that he would make and give to the children and to the women in our community, the men, women, everybody. So it was always innate for me, even though I grew up in the hood in New York. I was always just called back to the land. I was lucky enough to go to the Caribbean every summer growing up to still connect with my family, my roots, and the land. And so when nutrition became something that I was studying in college as a part of my midwifery journey, I realized how important it is to be autonomous in the way you eat, because it can help you be healthy and create a healthy life and have a healthier, smoother postpartum recovery period and breastfeeding experience. So that's the main thing that women and men should focus on when they're having sex, trying to conceive, etc. Because also the men's sperm, we're not going to talk about the men's sperm usually.
Huge infertility right now.
And it's actually based on the men's sperm. Nobody talks about that. No offense, guys.
I'll take accountability.
Well, we're not expecting you to populate the whole world. But that's something that is not spoken about. But there's so much now research and talk about how the men's sperm is really what, they don't have the strength to swim those 11 hours to get to the egg. Or if they are getting to the egg.
Hey, call me Michael Phelps.
Right? During that ovulation period, that ovulation week, if they do swim, they might not be strong enough, or they may be some genetic mutations or disabilities, that something is affecting the woman and the creation of this placenta and this baby, because the man was under too much stress, was, is suffering anxiety he was not aware of, depression, and just not having a well-balanced diet.
It almost seems like the depression, anxiety could be from the well-balanced diet, not having that.
Right? Absolutely.
Because with a biology background, I know that I love that you started it off with nutrition and diet. I didn't even think about that fully, but that's so true. And that infertility for or getting pregnant it has to do with your health, your wellness, your mindset. Could you speak on birth control?
Yeah. So, and infertility, we always only look at women too, and that's the patriarchal society.
No, of course.
It takes two to create, right? You have the spark and you have the egg. They create the new life. So birth control has always been in nature. I mean, we're talking about so many options that actually benefit both men and women. So men can take control of their birth control also. I've had people that I've worked with that would just purchase my herbal concoctions, one that I called unisex birth control. And it has things like neem.
Yeah.
It has things like moringa.
Before you get into that, because that's so awesome. You have a holistic birth control. I wanted to speak on, like, I think a lot. So just knowing my generation, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people in my generation, they grew up from like 15 to, I don't know when, I mean, 10, 20 plus years of being on the pill or being on some type of birth control, hormonal birth control, where they're like having this exogenous hormones being pumped into them. I mean, can you speak on like what you've experienced with that, and that also you're presenting that there's a natural way to do this, which I think most people don't know.
Well, all of the pharmaceuticals comes from some kind of plant or plant derivative or a mock of a plant. So even like the Plant B pill, it originated from wild yam root or like Mexican yam or something like that. Yeah. And that's one of the ingredients I use it. You take the wild yam and take it over a few months. But like if a man is doing it and you want to use it like within 15 minutes before neem, look into neem. It's used in so many places around the world because it kind of just disables the sperm and blocks it from meeting the egg. So, the issue with contraception or pharmaceutical contraception for me is that it does have damaging effects on the woman's body, on her hormonal system, on her nervous system, and it could last her lifetime. Some of these things that people are not aware of could cause infertility or sterilization. So that's where the dangers is, that people are not aware of this information. So by the time they reach, the years that they wish to procreate and carry a child, they're blaming themselves as to, I waited too long, or I'm not healthy enough. My body is fighting against me. And that's not the reality. Yeah. Somebody made you take something at 15 when your body was still developing.
Yeah. And your diet, you've been eating all types of processed food.
And nobody's educating you on diet.
Yep. You're wearing polyester clothing, all the microplastics and the stuff. And then now women are thinking about, oh, I can't get pregnant. And they're blaming themselves in some type of way. And now they're spending $50,000, $100,000 on IVF, right, just to have a child. Also, what's going on with IVF? I think that's the rise in that is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not, you can touch on it if you want to, but I just want to put that out there. So I think that's very, very powerful to understand that there are kind of natural ways to do a lot of the things that people think can only be done through pharmaceutical and biologic pharmaceutical intervention with that birth control. Now, another thing too is people are wanting to understand how they can get themselves better to be in a place in which they can conceive a baby and be pregnant and to have a natural birth. Can you speak on outside of after diet, kind of focusing on that? What other types of things can they think about to increase the levels of like fertility and all that? Yeah.
Nutrition, herbs, supplements. And when I say supplements, it's superfoods. So most of the time, anytime your body is not functioning properly, whether it's, a certain bodily system or organ, it's because it's deficient. So if it's deficient, it's not getting the nutrients that it needs to either heal itself or work in the most optimizing way, right? So like, for instance, let's say like your liver. If your liver is exhausted, if you're carrying a lot of emotional baggage like anger and fatigue, emotional regression, and then your liver is going to take a toll because our emotional body shows us a red flag in our internal system, in our physical body.
Yeah.
So anything that you're not processing or dealing with or healing emotionally, your body is going to show you that first red flag.
It's like a check engine light.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's all interconnected, and there's so many systems of nutrition or medicine in different parts of the world that teach in that holistic point of view. Whereas what's happening in the energy field is also happening in the organs.
Huge.
And so if you find that certain systems are not working, like your endocrine system, which is where your fertility comes from, it's operated by, it's because you're deficient in something. Either it's minerals or vitamins, or there's something being suppressed. Like when a woman may not be able to conceive a child, if she's in an abusive relationship, it's almost like energetically, universally is not allowing it to happen because the body is already exhausted and depleted and not absorbing the nutrients because you're always in a state of fight or flight. You're always under stress. Your body is rejecting everything because you're in your life, you're rejecting yourself by not, having boundaries or standards or keeping yourself safe or being in an environment that allows you to thrive,
Yeah.
right?
You're speaking about like the mind, body, spirit complex
Yeah.
here and how they all go hand in hand. When you're thinking about having a child, you're thinking about bringing life into the world, and you need to make sure that the vessel that is the most purified and cleansed that it possibly can be, and that's thinking about it from your mental psyche, your body physically, biologically, what's going on, and then the spiritual piece as well. Also, just real quick, to extrapolate on it, you were saying it might be a blessing, and it's kind of like divine intervention where God's like, no, girl, you do not want to have his baby.
Yeah. Because sometimes it happens like that. But
It's real, though.
funny enough, you could have a crackhead who gets pregnant and you're like, but how did that happen? Because everything is not linear, right? Everything, it's all at once. You have the soul contract, destiny comes into play.
Yeah.
The life contracts from lifetimes ago come into play. So it's like, sure, in this situation, your experiences, it's not happening because it's not supposed to with that person.
Yeah.
Right? Or in another instances, it's happening because just that baby needed to come through from you at any given time, whatever. It just had to happen. So we have to have that open mind of like, what is this trying to teach me and why is this happening? Even infertility teaches us, where are we missing?
Yeah.
Where are we neglecting ourselves? The inability to create. Are you actually living a life that you desire? Are you actually creating with your hands, with your mind, with your words?
Yeah.
Or are you speaking death? Are you always negative? Are you around people who are speaking down to you? That's an energy of death and destruction. So how can you possibly be fertile in your body if in your energetic field there's constant death and destruction?
Yeah, that's so powerful. I love that you're bringing in all the pieces, the mind, body, spirit, everything in here, because so many people I can imagine so many young women, and I've seen so many young women or young people being like, oh my gosh, I'm so unhealthy, or I'm because of this, or it's because of this, the environment I'm in, or because there's so many things that they're thinking about that are making it so that's all their fault.
Yes.
Now, it's not to say that you shouldn't take accountability and
You should.
responsibility, right? Like, hey, if we need to change your diet, we need to change your diet. If we need to get healthier here, we need to, do some spiritual inner work, healing work, do it. Take accountability for where you messed up. But it's also, we live in a society that wants to put all the onus and burden on the individual and to say it's your fault that you're not getting pregnant. There's nothing wrong with this
Often
society.
the woman, yeah.
There's nothing wrong. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with this
Yeah.
food. There's nothing wrong with, he's a nice guy. He's a good guy. Why don't you, and your body's like, there's something, he got some demons up in him or something, you know what I mean? Or like, there's like other stuff, and then, or the food. And it's like, that's really powerful to take that balanced look and to approach it from a holistic standpoint. It doesn't just start, holistic once I'm pregnant. It's holistic before. And you're talking about some of the best things to do. Take care of your diet, start to look at, your overall mind, body, spirit, and work with herbs and natural type of medicines that you would need, or natural type of remedies to be able to get yourself right. So does a doula come in here to be able to help someone even before that process?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing me back to that. Yeah. So a birth worker is going to walk you through that whole beginning stage. Yeah. So we're birth workers, especially from my perspective of teaching birth workers, we're so heavily focused on nutrition because that's necessarily one of the biggest things you can control. You control what you can cook and what you put into your mouth. Can you control the pollutants or pollution outside? No, not always. Sure, you can travel somewhere where the air is clear or whatever, but you can control what you're feeding your body and how you're building your immune system, your defense mechanism, etc. What you're exposing yourself to as far as chemicals, beauty products, laundry detergents. You get to choose all of that, right? And so that is what a birth worker is kind of like making you privy to, reminding you of that autonomy, reminding you of that wisdom that you get to choose how you're taking care of your body and the foundation that you're laying for the life of your child. And it starts with your body being the vessel, your body being the home, and your partner, their body also being the co-creator. So the way the partner diet will also play a part into the mother's, the mother's body pH balance, right? Because you can have sex with a man and he could ruin your whole hormonal system just because maybe he drinks or maybe he eats.
They always be blaming anyways. No.
Because this is the beauty of it, that it's so synergetic. Like it's all things play a part. We cannot do it alone. We cannot do it in a box and in a microwave. We can't. That's not how God intended it to be, or Creator intended it to be.
Yeah.
So we have to respect that fact that, yeah, you need to be healthy, I need to be healthy. And that's what a birth worker is doing from the beginning, because oftentimes women would hire a birth worker, a doula, before they hire the midwife, because oftentimes they're coming to us asking, who can I hire to be my medical provider? What are my options in my community? Who are the best OBGYNs, or who are the best midwives? And that's where we come in to give them all those resources and options. And we do administrative stuff too. So we kind of release that load from the mom, where we would call these providers and ask for prices and ask if they take insurance. And that's part of what we help with. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, see, this helps me to understand this so much better. Okay, maybe even to go deeper into how we want to go about pushing forward on all this here is, I'm just going to be super selfish. If I were planning to have a child, what would I be kind of thinking about? And so I guess the question comes up with is, there's so many unforeseen things that I don't know. And I'm like, shoot, I'm ignorant on all this stuff. You're saying that's okay. That's what a doula is here for, to help you, to educate you. Now, you're going to have to I have to read my own stuff and learn, and I have to decide. But that's the part of it, is helping to give you all that stuff, which is super powerful, and honestly gives me kind of a breath of fresh air, where I'm like, oh, okay, there's people that can help you, to teach you through this stuff. So when should, say me and my wife are looking to have a child, right? When should we go about speaking to a birth worker before?
When you're planning to get pregnant.
Okay, how many months would you say, or how long? Like, what is this?
I mean, I would say even within that first year, the year that you're already deciding we want to start, having a family, we want to start creating children.
Yeah.
Because it can take time to adjust, even heal or restore your hormonal system. That takes about 3 to 6 months. Right? It takes about 90 days to create good habits. So we're talking about just kind of being a little bit more intentional with family planning.
Yeah.
You want to start maybe a year before, but let's say you get pregnant and immediately you don't know what to do. That's when you start calling us and you're like, we need the blueprint. Like, where do we start? What decisions? Because the scary part is when you start planning when you're already pregnant.
Yeah, that's the
stressful, because it's an emotional journey, an emotional and spiritual journey, initiation that's happening to both the woman and the man. So both of y'all are now going to be bombarded by needing to make life decisions while also trying to be present for the initiation ceremony.
Yeah, super big. So, okay, so try to do basically, within, a couple of months, or, ideally a year, if you're approaching it, start speaking to different birth workers.
Watch the documentaries, read the books.
Watch the documentaries, yeah. And so this is when you're getting acquainted, to help yourself have more information, to be able to choose better. Okay, so now we're going into, all right, wife's pregnant, right?
Yeah.
What is kind of going on in the first, let's just say we'll go by trimester, right? That's what they do. So what's going on in the first trimester? What are we looking, what are the things to pay attention to? What's important? What should, wife be thinking about, or the woman be thinking about? Okay.
Let her sleep, let her eat, and get her exercising in the most fluid way, like flowy way, like yoga, meditation, Pilates, swimming.
Whoa. I have to shell out for the Pilates subscription and everything too. Dang.
Well, no, Pilates could be done at home. You don't need a membership for that.
No, but she's gonna hear this and then she's gonna say, "Oh, I need Pilates now."
Walking, like just really having think about everything you would want to teach your child, or what your child would make you do. Which, when your child is first born, when you have a newborn, you're breastfeeding often. So that means she has to already be comfortable with hydrating. Having a good relationship with water is important, because we're 70-80% water. Okay. So things like that, both of mom and dad want to be already considerate of. If you have a bad relationship with food, this is a psychological thing. Clearly, when you were a child, they probably withheld food from you. So you grew up to have a bad relationship with food, etc. So these things are things that you're addressing in the beginning. she's very much so, becoming a channel, a spiritual channel. So she will have prophetic dreams. She will have a lot of intense emotions. But because she's entering this initiation that now the partner could assist her with, but he's also having his own experience. So it's important that they focus on nutrition and creating just like really good habits from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that by the time baby is like newborn or even toddler stage, that child is going to have you running around, ripping around, getting up every moment to feed them or go to the restroom with them. And you want to be already kind of doing that for yourself. It's almost as if you're reparenting yourself the way you want to parent your child.
Got you. So, okay, that's super. Listen, it's common sense, really, but at the same time, it's not, Yeah. So, okay, the first trimester habits, get them down, start to be focusing on hydrating, nutrition, starting to be intentional with how you're approaching your life, because this is something where this is a new energetic experience, a new kind of landmark in your life.
New phase.
A new phase. Okay, so being open, holding space to the prophetic dreams, anything is kind of possible here. So, not being like, oh, you're crazy, or like, or if attitudes, so just kind of like being open to change occurring in that first trimester, getting habits down makes a lot of sense, and making sure that you're taking care of your diet, nutrition, starting to be, and when you say diet, like, would it be wrong to say like more whole foods based, trying to reduce processed foods?
Absolutely. Just being more colorful. I always say, your diet is dependent on your genetic makeup.
Yeah.
So not everybody eats the same or should eat the same. Like, I'm Caribbean. I come from a tropical place. We eat a lot of fresh fruits, nuts, seeds. So certain foods make more sense for my body and my genetic makeup than for other people who maybe are from cold climates and stuff like that, or blood type differentiates, and all these things. These are things people don't know about themselves.
Yeah. Well, to interject real quick, because I like a lot of people will talk about like, oh, the blood type diet's crap or all this, and it's just like, I'm sorry to mock you guys. You may have disagreements on thinking that people who discern diet based off of blood type or genetic lineage stuff. It doesn't have to be just blood type. I think it's just about
find what works for you.
Because what if your blood type diet says something, but that doesn't sit well for you?
Exactly.
So it's intuition, right? And it's discern. Yeah.
And
so that's
find what works for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's not one system in it. It's rather just you try out, use this as a guiding framework to go more whole foods and start to go more kind of based off of where your genetic lineage comes from, because this is your body, physically. If you're used to eating fruits, tropical fruits, maybe that would work better. Try that out. If it doesn't, adjust from there. But this is kind of giving people a grounds framework to start from. But it's always discernment, trial and error, and figuring it out.
And using your free will.
Yeah.
You can try whatever you want.
Yes,
so
that's big.
You have to find out what works for you. Again, you're creating the blueprint foundation for your child. So you don't know what your child is going to be receptive to. So it's important that you learn more about yourself more than anything. So with that diet component, it's always, what is working for you, what helps you stay the most healthiest.
Yeah. Do you see that? Is it pretty common in that first, as a woman, when they're pregnant, that their dietary preferences or how their body responds to certain things changes pretty rapidly, or does it stay consistent usually?
My experience with my personal clients has been where women have had adverse effects to like nutrition, or like their, whatever they're eating has not been sufficient, etc. Oftentimes my remedy would be like, eat more of your indigenous food.
Yeah.
Eat more of the food that of your culture, of your lineage, because your culture could be like American, and the American diet is the sad diet, the standard American diet.
Yeah.
Is like the, be mindful. When I say culture, I mean your lineage, because your body would be more receptive to it, because it's technically the foundation blocks of your DNA.
Yeah. I mean, this is the great American experiment. Like, we're all here, but we're not all from here.
Exactly.
Per se, right?
So, and even because climates and elevation, everything plays a part, right? Where you are and where your people have always been. But nonetheless, it's going to be the diet's the main thing, but just kind of choosing what's best for them. And what has worked for my clients when they have had like hyperemesis gravidium, which is like they couldn't stop throwing up. When these women only ate their traditional foods, they stopped throwing up. It's almost as if their body wasn't rejecting, the food anymore, because their body recognized it. So that's why I'm like, if that happens, what are your people used to,
That's powerful, because that makes me believe that it's a resort. Your body's going, not necessarily, people often say, oh, my body's changing. Your body may be going back to demanding what it's used to
Yes.
ancestrally.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the change, is actually a reversion, or it's going back to what it knows. That's actually that genetically, biologically safe area for it, which
There
is
you
very
go.
interesting. That makes so much sense,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
I mean, what are you birthing? You're birthing somebody part of your lineage. So you're
Yeah.
not birthing something else so different from you.
Yeah.
So, and in pregnancy, the body already naturally rejects something different happening in the conception of it, right? It's almost inclined to reject this. This is why sometimes we have morning, what they call morning sickness, which isn't really real if you're feeding yourself, by the way. And this is for the men who like hear these things in the conversation, morning sickness, women just throw up in the beginning of pregnancy, blah, blah. Most of the time in my experience, in my work, and even me when I was pregnant with twins, whereas I saw that my clients, when they had that, they just had to eat more frequently, or they had a deficiency in magnesium. So that means they just needed more nutrients so that their body wasn't sick. And me
Yeah.
being pregnant with twins, I had to eat every hour, not every 2 hours, because I was growing tall babies.
Yeah.
So
That's so funny that you bring that up, because honestly, as we start to understand that a lot of what we were taught is wrong, it's
Yeah.
funny.
Or outdated.
Yeah, or outdated, or just we didn't know,
Yeah.
Like our understanding evolves, but also our understanding evolves to the evolution of realizing that our prior understanding was wrong, but our prior understanding was right, So that's interesting, because I think even then I thought morning sickness, that just happens in pregnancy. Is that the
Nope.
case? Like, I think we have to start really questioning a lot of these things as just pain and suffering and all the
Yes,
stuff that
exactly.
we don't have to accept. I think pregnancy should be a beautiful thing. That's what I would like to, just delusional, if so, to believe. But I think it should be. And so we have to start questioning a lot of these things, where a patriarchal or a more, logical, masculine oriented brain has categorized something as such. And we have to be like, maybe that's not the case. Maybe she just needs to eat more.
Yeah.
And maybe eat, as your body is now kind of going back to what it traditionally needs, like base biologic, like if we're out in the wilderness type of stuff, it's going to be like, hey, I need, red meat, or I need berries,
Yep.
or I need whatever, so that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So, so in the first trimester, you're kind of thinking about diet, habits, getting prepared for the body's about to change, being open to the change that's kind of occurring, just holding space for all different types of stuff that can happen. And then now, one more thing is, it seems as if people are seeing so much change, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's pregnancy that's changing. It seems as if what people are being acquainted to is the reality of experience as a human being, of their genetics, of their biology, of their soul, their spirit, their mind, body, spirit complex. And the thing that may be crazy is there may not be that much change. It's just that they probably never knew who they really were prior. So it's like a birth for them, and kind of a baptism or an initiation into, hey, this human being who you thought you were, no, this is who you really are.
Yeah.
And so it seems like that change is actually a lot of stripping of that last kind of remnant of old beliefs and thoughts and all this stuff, right? You're like,
Yeah, because you have the choice.
yeah,
You could either listen to what everybody's telling you to do now that you're pregnant and you're expecting, whether you're a mother or a father, or you can be responsible and come into your full adultness and autonomous and make your decisions based on your intuition and what you believe is right. And I do believe we're seeing a lot of that even in my generation, where we are not doing what the baby boomers are doing. We are not, just sending our children to school or just giving birth in any institution, where we learned that some of our mothers gave birth in hospitals with 80 women in one room, shackled to beds. Okay.
it's crazy.
This was happening in the 80s and 90s, being shackled to a bed. It's not so far off. So we're doing it very differently. And when you are now expecting a child, you're about to replicate yourself. So you want to be the best version of yourself. Now, I would say that some generations, maybe the one behind us, they didn't think about that because they were on survival. They were just coming out of, plantation or slavery mindset or poverty construct or
World wars.
or wars. That same thing, right? Just death, destruction, and terrifying always. But we're not on that no more. We're like, wait, we're creating our own reality. We're making our decisions. We're shifting shit. We know our numerology. We know our astrology. We know ourselves much more deeper, and in a more profound way that we get to really create the best versions of ourselves while we're expecting children, and then as a reflection to our children so that they can get to choose to be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah. And it's like there's a huge technological and information innovation and growth that's occurring in tandem to a resurgence in spiritual, natural, holistic, kind of ancestral knowledge.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing like advanced technology come up with ancient wisdom.
Exactly.
And that's like that fusion. Like if you really do this right, this is one of the coolest times ever. This age of Aquarius and everything is like, this is one of the coolest times ever where you can really blend like just insane capacity to reach people, share data, share information, and to have that be true ancestral knowledge. And it just seems like it fuses together in just something so lethal. I love it. At least that's just me as a man. But
You're
like,
such
cool.
an Aquarius.
But I love that. That's so cool. It's like this is the future here, to think about coming back to our roots and using our knowledge of today in that best way. Okay, so coming into the second trimester now, what changes? What's going on with baby? What should mother be thinking about? Those types of things.
Yeah. So the beauty of this too is that now we have apps or things like that kind of walk you through the process of what's happening to the baby every week. Which to me, I'm kind of like, that's cute, but mind your business.
Yeah.
Because why y'all so interested in what's happening to the baby? Focus on the mother. There's not enough wisdom on how we can support the mother. Because it's not so much let's dissect her. No, because y'all have done that enough. Testing and exploring, melanated bodies, etc. But it's more about how can we support the mother and how can we really educate her on what's happening to her body. And I found that to be missing when I was pregnant. I was like, another week, okay, I get it. The baby now has fingernails. Cool. That's helpful for us parents because now we can feed our bodies to benefit the growth of that particular body system or organ, right? If the baby,
that's gangster.
Right? If the baby in that week is really growing the liver and the kidneys and the filtration system of the body, that's what it is. Then I'm going to eat foods that nourish and strengthen the liver and the kidneys, like milk thistle and bladderwhack and burdock root, all these things. Like I'm going to focus on giving my best, the baby and myself, the best foundation to the development of that body system or organ or whatever, right?
Oh, I love that.
But there's so much focus on that, but not enough on, but what's happening to the mother's body? Is she now expanding in her bone, like our pelvis changes, our body, kind of forms to really just be a vessel in which we then have to recover from, in postpartum. Our body is changing. We need to see a chiropractor, our hair, our skin, our nails, and then what's happening in our actual energetic field. We're becoming, more in tuned. We're becoming softer. We're becoming more nurturing. We can be more susceptible to environmental toxic, like energy, like stress.
Yeah.
So a lot in nature, most animals go into hiding when they're pregnant. Most animals go into hiding because they separate themselves from the general population to protect their energy and, from not being injured, eaten or whatever by any other animal. So we full blown work, sit down in a desk 8 hours, take buses to work. And I'm not saying the physical activity is not necessary because it is. However, the sedentary lifestyle is not healthy. All these things, we have to be a lot more cautious and intentional when family planning because we should give ourselves the best care. It's not just about the baby. The baby is good because it's taking everything it needs from the mom, but it's the mother that needs to be honored, taken care of.
Bro.
And that really hits, it really comes to women in that second trimester when they're really realizing, wow, it's sitting with me now. I'm becoming a mom. I need to take care of my diet. I need to eat for these particular growth spurts of the baby. But then you also start to see how family dynamics are changing in that moment. Like you get to see the mother-in-law, your own mother and how she behaves or projects, right? You get to see the men in your family, whether they're supportive or shameful about certain topics and all these things. And then you start to hear all the stories. Please stop telling people all your negative stories about pregnancy. They're not helpful. Don't ever tell a pregnant woman how much you suffered during your pregnancy, or unless it's going to be constructive and given from a place of positivity, all you're doing is projecting and just like traumatizing people before they even have their own experience. So
Yeah, bro. I've seen so many. Look, we just came after Thanksgiving, right? We know that sometimes there's some beef at family gatherings, right? Because not everyone's on the same wavelength and everything. But I find it so wild that when you see someone when in a family, when there's someone who's pregnant, it's like everyone becomes an expert immediately.
Yes.
And everyone is sharing all this. And also, it seems like a lot of women are like intentionally putting their trauma they experienced onto the young women. And that makes me a little bit aggressive.
Yeah.
I might tell someone to shut the fuck up, you know, but that that's real though. And I can imagine a young woman, you know, listening to auntie or grandma who got shackled down to have her baby. She's looking at this young woman who's like doing intuitive birth working and has a doula and in tune with her body and eating right. And like, I'm not even going to a hospital to deliver my baby. And she might get a little jealous, bro. Might get a little pissed off. Might get a little, no, you need to have this trauma. You need it.
And I've had that experience as a birth worker. I was tending to a mom literally the day that she was in labor, and the mother-in-law was not supposed to be present. That was agreed upon. But she showed up to the apartment before we went to the hospital because we were laboring at the house. And the mother-in-law, I immediately sensed that the daughter-in-law, my client, she stopped contracting. She literally, her birthing process stalled when she came in. And she shifted the energy. So I sent her and her husband to the room, and I spoke to the mother-in-law. And then the mother-in-law immediately started telling me her birth story. Oh, what do you do? Oh, my experience here in New York was terrible, blah, 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 in the 80s. And I'm just like, yeah, let's not share that with mom, because she stopped laboring as soon as you came in. So I'm going to need you to stay as positive. Let me guide you through this process, because you're about to see how it's always been done, but we've forgotten for a few years.
It's about to go down. You're going to learn today.
And you know what? After that, she was so receptive. She was so helpful. She was very quiet. She didn't speak a peep, but she was helpful with her hands. And this is what we do as birth workers. We read the energy of the room, and we basically transmute the bullshit into peace.
Well, you also said that a part of what you said here, I think is important, is you had to be willing to have confrontation, be willing to, you know, tell someone to leave the room, tell someone that shit's not going to fly here, you know, but to do it from a place where it's like, you know, in benefit of pregnancy and mother of the family.
Because it's dangerous. It's dangerous if a mother is it could cause dangerous effects to the mom's body or to the baby's birthing journey process into this world when she's under stress.
Yeah, a breech baby and then cervix closes. I was watching the documentary. So.
Yeah, exactly. It depends the situation.
I don't know shit.
Because but that it happens, and this is why our work is important, because we're just seeing the holistic point of view, not just the physical aspect of childbirth, but we're managing the energy in there and making sure that the mother feels safe. Because in order for her to have a healthy delivery, she has to feel safe.
Yeah, no, 100%. So. And there's all types of things that like most people are not aware of. When it's like that energetic piece it's body, mind, spirit. There's other things that are occurring, and it's like this is a time that needs to have a good channel, good energy. But so in the second trimester, that's when things are starting to get real. That's when changes are really starting to occur, and that's when you're realizing you need to be protective of your mental, of your everything energy, here, of your mental energy, and just across the board. And what else when it comes to second trimester? Is there anything else that you think is important that we start to, I think the reiterating that you were saying, it's important to continue to focus on the mother and to remember that it doesn't just now that woman's pregnant, she's no longer, her entire needs, everything doesn't take a backseat. She is still a human being. She is still autonomous. She is still needs to be valued in the same way that the child is to be valued, and that if she's tired, if she's feeling certain things, that she needs to be cared for, and Because it seems like in the past, like as soon as a woman would get pregnant, they would just treat her like a incubation
Yes.
machine.
That's exactly what.
Yeah. And so it's like eat this for the baby, do whatever, like, and then the woman has to like become nothing, but her entire energetic, spiritual mindset, all that stuff is being transferred to the baby. So that's like
Yes.
you're traumatizing the baby in the womb.
Yeah.
So it's important to prioritize the mother still through it, and to make sure that the mother is comfortable prioritizing herself, and she is reminded
to
and
prioritize
supported
herself.
in knowing that this is her body, her journey, her baby. Okay, that's huge. Okay, now we're getting in third trimester, and it's getting more serious. So obviously it's serious throughout all of it, but it's like starting to become more prevalent, evident, right? What's going on in the third trimester, some things to be kind of aware of and know about there.
So third trimester, I will circle right back around to nutrition again, and bodily autonomy. And again, because in third trimester, the babies are now growing more frequently. So the woman feels the depletion. That's where she gets a lot more tired. I mean, because it's also an energetic experience, but physically, the baby is probably growing more often, depending on what week we're at. So she definitely wants to be cautious of maybe having to now eat a little bit more. And I'm not talking about big meals. I'm talking about throughout the day, having snacks, having fulfilling meals. This is also where a lot of the pressure comes in from medical providers of these decisions that y'all should have talked about before. But this is where a lot of fear mongering also takes place, where it just kind of becomes, I'm already bombarded in my body and in my mind, and now people are stressing me about how fast this child needs to come. They're pressuring me about whether they can dissect my body before I even, we're talking about like,
C-section.
testing, pelvic examinations, there's a lot that goes on that women don't know that they do not have to consent to. They can opt out from, right? And again, depending on your medical provider, which you want to choose somebody that you know about their statistics, that you know what their C-section rates are, that you know what their episiotomy rates are, or the hospitals, or even whoever you're working with, how many of the births that they've attended have resulted in injury or deaths, or things like that is where the woman really now starts to feel the pressure of this. And it doesn't help when you have all these outside opinions. And so our work, especially as birth workers, when we're very conscious and we're not doing it just to do it as a trend, we know that our job is really to empower the mom to remember that she can make the best decision for herself. Even if she didn't read all the books, even if she didn't watch all the documentaries, even for the father, y'all know innately, intuitively, what would be best for the safety and sanity of you, your partner, and your family. So all the outside opinion sometimes is too loud. And in that night, that third trimester, that's your home stretch. So, and how you deal with that third trimester and the delivery could change the complete dynamic of your partnership. And it can completely alter or have lasting negative effects on your relationship with your child. So depending on how much you're able to stand up for yourself and make informed decisions that you feel comfortable with, that would be the precursor to your relationship with your child, whether you feel ashamed or felt like you didn't have an option when you gave birth, or like it really affects. I mean, even the delivery process affects breastfeeding. Breastfeeding decisions could be a really tricky conversation between a man and a woman. You know what I mean? And I've experienced that myself. I ended up writing a whole book about it, I mean, I'll probably write another one, but it was a quick little reminder of like, men and women need to know that breastfeeding is not a sexual thing. It is something that was given to us, a gift from creation, that where you mentioned earlier that there's a certain time for lactating and breast milk. And I'm like, I had twins in 2020 and my son is now 5 and I'm still producing milk. There's women in their 70s that still produce milk. You know what I mean? And so it's like these are, right? So this is the gift that God gave us for us to nourish and nurture our children. For us to see that as anything less than that, or see it as sexual or lustful, it is incestual and it is diabolical, in my opinion.
Well, there's a lot of sexual perversion in our society
In
nowadays.
this society, yes.
So that's
this
important.
society is known for being like the biggest consumer of child pornography. So that says a lot about why people have the views that they have when it comes to pregnancy, childbirth, and breastfeeding.
100%. And that's just to show that's a symptom reflective of a greater societal perversion that's going from a lot of things that are repressed and not talked about. And so that's why I think a lot of times, I mean, I just wanted to say is you go out in public, most people nowadays are weirded out seeing a breastfeeding mom. You know, and I know that moms talk about all this, like they have all these circles and all that. I'm just super ignorant.
And we've recently changed laws because of that. Now, it used to be illegal to breastfeed in public, but now it's legal and it's protected in all 50 states.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Now, that's within like the last 10 years.
But most people didn't even know about like this being something. And also, but the thing is like, because there's like, oh, you're like, oh, guys, like, oh, there's boobs are out. Like, oh, and it's like,
slow down, Billy. Like,
yeah, but the thing is that you realize is like there's such a level of like perversion that's in place here that you start to see a lot of this stuff in our society. It's a sick society. There's symptomology that's demonstrative of a collection of symptoms that you could say there's an indication that you could call this. I don't know what you call it.
Sadistic?
I mean, yeah, it's perverted, I would just say, right?
Yeah.
And now why, the causes, we can get into all that, more of that stuff. But we have to say, hey, babies are still being born. We got to do what we got to do. So I think that's powerful there. One thing that I was curious that you said that really jogged something was in this time is when a lot of decisions are coming. Now they're showing more. You're thinking, okay, hey, this can happen any moment now, realistically, in the third trimester. It just, I think, makes me realize how freaking important planning before to have the answers, to have more concrete things to understand. This way, those decisions have been made already. Things have been set up. Things are good. So that last time in which, hey, maybe mobility's decreased now. Maybe, we're more very emotional, right? Now you're a lot more vulnerable, right? And so, it's like, okay, we want to have all that stuff figured out. So we don't have a 8-month pregnant woman having to get into her masculine and like figure this stuff out, like let her just do what she's doing. That's powerful. Also, it makes me realize how much I'm smart and I'm well-read and these types of things. I have no idea about tons of this stuff, and I'm sure I could learn pretty rapidly, but it almost seems like I would never want to have any type of pregnancy in which I didn't hire a doula and a whole team and everything from the beginning. Like, honestly, I'm like sweating bullets over here thinking about doing this. I'm just like, dang, bro, no, I need like shit. Give me like 5 doulas. Like,
it takes a team.
Yeah, like let's do all the doulas, all the midwife. I want everybody, and I want the best. And if I could interview these people and like beforehand and talk to them and see where I have that resonance, like that's powerful. Because realistically, I'm like, honestly, like I'm kind of being like, yo, I trust you with my wife and child, Yeah. So that's like a big thing. And I'm not out here trying to make that decision under pressure, under the gun, I want to make this decision in a calm, safe environment. So when shit gets real, it's like, okay, we already done this. I know what's going on. I've vetted these people. So in learning about this more, I'm just like, who doesn't have a doula? Who doesn't have that's crazy, bro. That is so crazy. But now it makes me understand more. The less you have support, the less you have a doula, the less you have a team, the more vulnerable you are to predation, manipulation, and saying yes and trusting the doctors because you don't have a choice. You don't have any other thing. You're thinking like, well, that's what the doctor said. I don't know. I don't know about this stuff. They're professional. So it's like you come in with a team. You come in with a well-read, well-versed team. Nah, bro, like this is gonna go down how I want it to go down because I got my team with me here. But realistically, I don't know a lot of this stuff, and I don't think many people do. But I also don't think they should be expected to because there's professionals like you out there who are about this life,
As of 2022, in the words of Ina May Gaskin, about 6% of women hire a doula in this country, which is not a lot.
No,
it's not a lot, and the wild part is that when what we do as birth workers, as doulas, it used to be what like the aunties or the grannies in the communities used to do, even if they weren't midwives, or it's the medicine woman in your family. There's always that, and it's usually that black sheep that's thinking differently, that's kind of more in nature, that's just doing things more intuitively,
Yeah.
there's usually the one in every family, at least one in every family.
The one that
I'm
always,
gonna keep hope,
the
right?
one that always gets criticized, the one that's
Yes.
always she's different, the one
Yep.
that always people talk
Yeah.
trash about, and then you start to get older and you realize,
Oh,
she's just
she
been
was
holding
the-
it down.
She was
Yeah.
the one exposing everything.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
there's usually already somebody in a family that does this kind of work. It's just even me when I was doing it, I didn't know. And it's always been so natural for us to work in community, to show up for each other, for the children and the elders. But because so much of that, we've veered so far from our own natural indigenous cultures and our own actual like natural culture, not American culture, but like our lineages, that we've forgotten that these things were just so easy. We just showed up as that. We didn't wait to get certified or wait to get validation. Our existence, our family, and our empathy, our compassion, and our love was our validation. And everybody who kept calling us for help or for assistance in these moments, in this initiation, that was our validation.
Yeah.
So we exist, and thankfully now I'm just, even me in my certification program, sure, I give you a certificate and I train you, throughout the array of topics, but I always say, I give you a certificate, but it's your people, it is your spirit guides that initiate you and truly validate
Yeah.
this work for you
Yeah.
and your love for wanting to serve women and their families.
Yeah, it's so real. I mean, I think really, it's like in The Last Dragon or in Dumbo. It's the paper. The thing is just kind of an amulet, a token for you to act as if that you
Yes.
fully embodied it.
Yeah.
Then once you really are in that, it's like there is no master, there is no certification. It's you believing in it full force. And
Yeah.
sometimes it takes those little steps to get there.
To feel that.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm so happy that we have you and that you're doing this, not only doing this to provide the service, but also to teach, because everyone needs this, because it's like, there's a lot of people who may have the calling, who may feel that, hey, they've always been the one in the family. Like, I imagine it's as simple as this. Someone is in the hospital. Who do they want to be there? Auntie, like bring her here, bring, whatever it is. Cause she's going to tell that nurse, did you clean that? Did you check that? What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. Like holding it down, because we know what it is, especially if you come from a minority family or ethnic family or
Yeah.
poor, right? Like, a lot of times they're not giving a fuck about you. They're not really
Yeah.
caring. And so you gotta be the one who holds them in check. You don't care if they hate you. We're talking about life and death here. We're talking about real stuff. So it's like that person already has that inclination to be there, to be protector, provider, to help, to assist, to facilitate, to hold space.
To have the knowledge of the systems that are in play.
Yeah, to know what it is, right? Like we
Yeah.
know what it is. But they haven't done the full initiation to step into this, even though they're inclined,
Yeah.
they have the proclivity for it, right? So I think it's powerful that you're doing a certification process for these people, because you're not sitting here saying, I'm the master, let me teach you. You're saying,
No.
let me awaken that teacher within you.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah,
You
that's...
did your research.
maybe I just tapped it.
Well, that too. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I really love
And I
that.
have students. Majority of my students are from 25 to 35 years old, but I've had students or, alumni now that are over 40.
Yeah.
We have some grandmas who sat there with the daughter-in-laws in my class and also trained. So, it's not that just anybody in your family, like the aunties, could do that. Today and age, there's so much distrust in family because, again, so many of us black sheeps are showing up and choosing to live differently.
Yeah.
So what we do as birth workers too, like we're coming in with the non-judgment, non-emotional aspect of you need to do something for me, or you need to make decisions based on what I want. Whereas a family member might make you feel that way.
Yeah, that's
A family
true.
member might make you feel like, no, you have to do this because we're family. And when you really think about, familial contracts, that could also be a big participation in that, where, destiny swapping might show up and people just want to judge you. And
Wow, that's crazy.
mothers who might be in the space that are not the healthiest, that are
Bro.
projecting, where everybody should take a training like that just to have that awareness of,
Yeah.
I'm showing up from a place of giving you the options and letting you know the resources, not making you feel like you have to make a decision to appease me. And
Yeah.
that's for everything,
Facts.
birthing or raising your child. Because if it's my child that I carried for 10 months and decided to live for, okay, that they had to bring me back to life to live for my children, I make the decisions. I am the sole creator of that child with that baby father, with that husband. We need to know that we are creating the blueprint for that baby. All those other people are support people.
Know your role.
They're not, thank you. They're not a third party to this co-creation. You are a support. Know your place as a grandparent.
Yeah.
Know your place as an auntie or uncle.
Because sometimes you got to pop out and show. You might have to check somebody. Real talk. You might have to check somebody because people have had these bad experiences. They had this trauma. They had these things. And they're not even aware of the things that they're regurgitating and spewing, and the fear and the fear mongering and all this stuff, the manipulation, the gaslighting, and this, so that they can maintain control. They don't like to see someone who's taking control of their own life, taking control of their own child's life. No, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm not going to do the same thing you did with me to my child.
Exactly.
Even though you like that, even though that maybe your custom, your tradition, whatever it is. No, it ends here today with me. Like, that's a cycle breaker, a generation, like a curse, generational trauma, healing that. Like, that's real. And let me
say something. Hold on, because this is a very trending situation. Because if you truly care about your grandchildren, you would empower that mom and that father to make the decisions together. If you care about your grandchildren, if you care about your nieces and your nephews, you would know and acknowledge that God to that child is mom and dad. Mainly mom, because she's the creator and the sustainer and nourisher of life. But you would know that and acknowledge and respect that. And once we come to grips with the fact that we need to empower the mother and, guide her into her motherhood and not try to replace her, then we would have healthier boys and girls that grow up to be healthier women and men.
Yeah. I'll cut my granny off if she goes crazy, I don't care.
I already, I know granny.
that's the thing is, like, I think you talked about the familiar relationships. It's like, however it is, if that person isn't, if they're like a negative impact, they're trying to do things where they're putting fear, they're putting negative emotion, they're putting this stuff into your life, into your child's life, into your family's life, like, no. And as a man, I feel like you should be able to just support. Maybe mom has intuition. It's like, listen, your auntie, whatever, she ain't, I don't like that vibe. And all right, then you're not going to come around, like, for at least for this 9 months, at least for this time. Because that's
having boundaries is very important.
Boundaries and being able to enforce them, but also being able to enforce them out of love.
Of love, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't need to come in and just be like, coming in.
Sometimes you got to.
Sometimes you got, yeah.
But yeah.
Sometimes, her name is Why the G, y'all. You know what it is.
Because you're also educating these people, but also some people are coming really from a dark place, a place of brokenness, a place of, I went through all of this stuff. So what do you mean? Like you said earlier, of that, mother-in-law, what do you mean you're not going to be traumatized the way I was? I was fine after I was traumatized. No, you weren't, beloved. No, you weren't. Because it's showing up today. It showed up yesterday, and it's going to show up in your deathbed. And we're sorry that you're going to go through that. But we can't take that responsibility. Yeah. So we have to have boundaries, because for the people who don't have boundaries, like these family members that try to impose these decisions for a mom and a dad, these family members never were taught boundaries. We teach our children boundaries as mom being the main one, because you have such a close and intimate relationship with your child. Intimate, meaning into me, you see into me every day. I see into you every day, whereas maybe dad is often working or maybe taking care of the more, physical hands up, logistical stuff. Mom is implementing the foundation of spirituality for that child. And if I have grandparents around me that don't have boundaries, it is my duty to have boundaries myself, to be an example of them, so that they learn that, so that we continue to teach those things to our children by example or by distance, because some of them need to be distanced.
Yeah, sometimes, you got to get up out of here. No, I get it, 100%. I get it, and what you're saying is really true, and I think a lot of times children will have a lot of trauma from when they grow up, when mom or dad didn't put boundaries on people who were negative or harmful.
Yes.
Because they look and they say, Mom, Dad, how could you allow that person to do that? You're my mom, you're supposed to protect me. You're my dad, you're supposed to protect me. You allowed that person in my life. The child doesn't have a say. They don't have the ability to say, I don't like the way that person makes me feel. I don't like what that person's saying. And And let's be real. This is a lot of times mom and dad don't have boundaries, and they're like, oh, that's just how uncle is. That's such how that way. And then you start seeing now they're gonna mom and dad are gonna leave the kid with, you know, uncle whatever or whatever. And now we're talking about sexual abuse, trauma stuff, right? And that's gonna mess up a child.
And
that's just real. You gotta have boundaries.
These are the same stories, because sometimes we need to connect these dots, because so many of us are becoming aware of our own healing and our own journey and the shadow work and all these words, right? That same storyline, that child that didn't get protected by their parents then grows up to be the same 40, 50-year-old that is no contact with their parents. And everybody's surprised.
Everybody's surprised. Oh.
What you mean I can have a relationship with my grandchild? Well, you let me be abused in so-and-so's house by these family members. You still have them at Thanksgiving or holidays, and you want me to let you watch my child? That's insanity. That's like putting my child in harm's way, knowing that there's harm there. Like, no. So, but you're saying, I wanted to connect that dot, because I feel like a lot of people, they don't understand their power as parents to nurture, nourish, protect, and provide for these children that one day become adults. And we all look at our life and we saw how fast 5 years came after COVID, right? After that pandemic time, the 2020s. We saw how 10 years flew by when they were doing those trends of like 10 years later. So, oh my God, I can't believe it flew by. This is how quick life passes, that you then become the adult that is the parent that has to choose the new version of the story. Are you going to do the same thing, or are you going to be more empowered by the decisions that you're making that will affect the rest of your life, your children's life, and their children's life?
Yep. One of my favorite songs that I love is J. Cole. Well, I just love J. Cole, but J. Cole, High for Hours. And he's like, the abused becomes the abuser. That's how life goes. It's called a cycle.
It's a cycle.
And so we're those cycle breakers. We're those black sheep. We're those people who are stopping that generational trauma from continuing to occur. But that means you got to do uncomfortable things. If you want to have things you're not used to having, you have to do things you're not used to doing sometimes. And I think that's super important. And a lot of times people say, I was such a great parent, or I was such a good this. Yes, you were good, but because everybody liked you, that is not an indicator that you're good. An indicator that you're good is that you did the right thing. And sometimes the right thing means you need to flip some tables. Right. The right thing means you need to be serious, you need to be stern, and you need to, somebody needs to leave. And so it's not just about being liked and being the best, you want your kid to like you, give them candy every day, Right. It's like, no, that you have to do the things that are for the best. And that, I think, is super big, where people need to live for their children, need to live for the people around they want to educate, and they need to step up and have some freaking, as you said, they have to have they have to have some force with it. I'd say have some balls, but you correct me. What you
assertiveness
said.
Is it?
Yeah. It's just to be assertive.
Oh, balls, right? Yeah, right. Because he said, "Oh, you got some balls." I'm like, "No, I have ovaries."
Yeah, ovaries.
That's where it comes from. I got ovaries, and I'm proud of them.
You gotta have some ovaries sometimes.
Y'all can have your balls. Y'all men can have your balls. We got the ovaries.
I think that's important in that. But I think that's we skipped the phase of birth. So we're first trimester, second trimester,
yeah, we're
third
in labor
trimester.
now.
Yeah, now we're in labor.
Home stretch.
Okay, so now it's like, what's going on here? I guess just high level, like what are the most important things that someone should be thinking about here? And then we'll get into, I think we talked a lot about in the case of making sure how we're raising them. But I want to talk about birth and what's going on with vaccinations, consent, what people don't have to consent to, remembering their rights on a lot of things. I think that's important. So whatever you think is important there. So
well, I'll start with even the whole birthing process. When you're in a partnership or when you're engaging in sexual activity that can lead to procreation, you already want to be responsible enough to have a living will.
Yeah, wow.
To have a trust. To have your documentation organized and have everything prepared, because if you do have a child tomorrow and you didn't plan for it and something happens to you, which can happen to women, especially in this country where, things could be really sketchy in these institutions where lives could be lost.
That's been increasing, right? We have deaths have been increasing.
The statistics are a little sketchy.
Okay.
Right?
But
because
yes, statistically I heard that we're seeing
it's dangerous to give birth in this country.
Especially for Black women as well.
Yeah, melanated women.
Yeah.
Yeah. But oftentimes is also, if you're not showing up there with some kind of support, you can have a legal advisor present. You can have an advocate present for you, or what we do is basically all of that. Except
Yeah.
we're not legal representatives.
Just have a
but-
doula and a midwife and all.
But you can have your paperwork and provide it to the medical provider and let them know, hey, we have life insurance. We're protected in our human rights, and we're just enforcing that to let them know that, we're not just a vessel coming in, giving life, and you could just abuse our body. So there's so many different ways that you can feel a lot more safe in these places.
Yeah.
But you must know that when you're going into these places, you are in their jurisdiction. So you will absolutely lose some rights.
Wow.
Because you're consenting to their care.
Wow.
Whereas you can choose any other kind of care.
So then it's important then to make sure that where you're giving birth is important. So a
Of
birthing
course.
center at
Anywhere,
home is like
whoever with anybody.
So
yeah.
that seems to be, for me as someone who's just learning this
Yeah.
stuff, what you just said seems to be the number one point as to why you would want to opt for maybe a birthing center or a home birth, and then to interview the birthing centers for sure.
Everybody.
because
You
all that-
interview everybody.
Yeah. But it's like, it's not about that you don't think that the hospital could be safe, or you believe in some crazy statistics, or you're this whatever crazy spiritual person and all this stuff. No, it's more that you don't want your rights and your autonomy to be taken
Infringed
away.
upon.
And
Yep.
as soon as you step into their place, they go, oh, sorry, you have to get this shot. Oh, sorry,
Yep.
you have to do that. Or when you signed that you're doing our care, you signed all these things.
Or you're
right?
not allowed to do certain things that may be important to you and your culture through this
Or
initiation.
you can't put no sage or do something, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like, you
yeah.
can't, like-
Always read these contracts.
That's
Everything is
crazy.
business. So whatever
Wow.
you're consenting to by walking into the place, you could be consenting to it.
So it's not even that. It's not that people are choosing home births out of they think it's always better. They're choosing home births sometimes because they don't want to give up their human rights
Correct.
walking into a hospital.
Correct. However, some midwives are certified nurse practitioners.
Oh, for sure.
Certified nurse.
Well, I think
yeah.
the next thing is, okay, then you want a place that does care about someone's
Yeah.
rights, and that's where you can look for a good birthing center, a good
Yes.
midwife, all this. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that
It's just
that gives
who
me
you
the
hire,
polarity.
you need to know who they work for.
Yeah,
Because who they work for is who they answer to.
better not be working for no BlackRock State Street Vanguard.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you just want to be more privy to it because, like I said, everything is a contract. So you want to make sure that you're making the decision and you're not making decisions under duress, which is usually what happens in labor and
Yeah.
delivery because nobody's done that research. Nobody has done that studying before the labor. So then they're just being imposed.
They prey upon that.
You would always prey upon somebody who's ignorant. That's why they don't want you to read. That's why our education system is what it is. Why would they educate you to be a critical mind, a critical thinker?
Yeah.
No, because they can't control that. So, but then again, the people who do critically think and read and research and explore and expand, those are the real leaders.
Yeah.
So
Powerful.
it takes effort to be in that position. But in that labor delivery phase now, that's where a lot of those things, you want to be prepared for administratively. And then now you're in a liminal space between life and death, both you and your partner. So the birth workers are guiding you through that space. We're kind of like in the outskirts, helping manage the energy so that you can be fully in that spiritual space because it is so life and death. Anything can happen and you feel it. You feel like the energy, like who in here? So whoever's in that space also brings their people. They bring whatever energy is attached to them, whatever. They bring that, and I'm speaking from a place of spirituality. So if you don't believe in that, that's fine. Maybe now you'll be a little bit more aware of it. But vibes, whatever y'all want to call it.
The vibes. If the vibes
yeah.
ain't right, you better make them right.
Right. So that's what's really happening now in that delivery process. And that's where it kind of like, it could be really risky. So your decisions, you want to be proud of them. You want to make them based on your own intuition. Because if you've made a decision and you've done your research prior to making that decision, you are less likely to be feeling shamed about it or regretful of it afterwards versus having to do something out of fear.
Yeah. So then that's a great part too, is like, I think, obviously it seems at this point, get a doula, get a team, please, if you can, and just do your research. I'm sure, you have so
Pick
much,
up a book on it.
yeah, all this stuff. I mean, it just seems like that's just so important. So now I think there's one piece here where it's like, everyone, my understanding as a man, as a young man, is when I think about labor, when I think about kind of birth occurring here, I see screaming woman in pain, crying. This is like a
That's Hollywood. That's Hollywood.
See, they painted it
Yeah.
through the movies and all this stuff, right? So can you? I just want like you to speak on like bringing back that like love, sacredness, beauty back into it. Can you speak on some of those things and like as a doula, you're not just there like anxiety. You're there holding love, happiness, making a beautiful space, like jokes and
Yeah.
those types of things. Like, can you speak to that a little bit more? Because I want young women who are aspiring to have children to see it as like an exciting, beautiful thing,
Yeah,
right?
because it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's a journey.
So like, however you could bring that back in, anecdotes
So
or whatever.
there's some fun topics I would encourage people to research, like orgasmic birth. They have books on it now, and even in Ina May Gaskin's book, Shafia Monroe is a midwife who speaks on these things as well. And there's so many contexts now, thankfully, an array of cultures that's been published about the beautiful perspective of birth, and that it is an initiation. It should be held as a ceremony. And even my experience, I labored for about 3 days. And even my experience being there when women have been laboring, this is not something that happens fast. Obviously it's dependent on your body. What baby is this? Is this your first birth or your third birth? Sometimes it could be quicker than other times, but it's almost as if this birthing woman is going through a vortex. And I have my motto is, and even in my birth work, that a woman goes out into the universe to collect the soul of her baby, and then brings it back into her body and out and births the baby. And this is a process in a way that takes like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
You can begin on a Sunday and give birth by Tuesday or Wednesday. So it's not something that should be rushed. It's not something that should be expected to happen fast. It is something that should be revered. It should be honored. It should be allowed to flow the way nature does, because our bodies are literally opening down there. Like our cervix is a whole muscle that's thinning out and then opening up for the education. Thinning out and opening. That's the cervix. That's what it's doing. And then, the journey that our children take down our vaginal canal, which is our pelvis, that, it's a tunnel that they're going through. And they're collecting the information of who they are and their memories of what they're coming from, whether they're a new soul or an ancestor being reborn. And that's just based on my belief system and my perception. And I honor and I respect everybody in their own magical imagination and how it feels safe for you to see it. But as long as you know that it's divinely orchestrated, and it's not something that is scary and an emergency and chaotic. No. I've been so lucky to witness so many different births, from hospital to a home birth to my own birth to being a birth worker through the phone, like being called and sitting there through the phone and still feeling this magic and respect and honor to God, creation herself.
Yeah.
Because that is what we are. We are God in human form as women. How dare you not respect her?
Yeah.
Right? Let me see you try to do what we do through your penis.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So
Don't challenge me though. I'll go on my transhumanist vibe and start to create a fake
Listen,
artificial.
I said it. If y'all really if men think they women and y'all really think y'all could take the role of a woman, go ahead and implant yourself a low uterus and you have fun with it.
Listen,
because that's how disrespectful it can get.
We see transhumanism rising as an idea in the world right now, where people are trying to create artificial wombs, IVF even is leading towards some of this stuff. So we do see the masculine type of, technological, cold, heartless, trying to create life in this way. So that's definitely present,
Right. Like it's almost, I don't think anything is impossible. It's just, there's still going to be a balance in nature, whether we contribute to it or not. Everything will continue to be balanced, because that's what nature does. You will never not see nature's cycle come to its fruition. Right. And so that is one thing I would lend to younger women or any women, because we have a rise in women over 40, 30s and 40s now getting pregnant. That's actually more common than the younger girls getting pregnant. I don't know if you know that.
Wow, I did not.
Yes, than the younger women getting pregnant. So it doesn't matter. Whoever is deciding to take on this journey, they need to know that it's not something that should be feared. It's something that should be respected and not necessarily planned, but you need to see it from an initiation. And what is an initiation? My best example is like when you have a sweet 16 as a young girl, or a bat mitzvah, or whatever, as a coming of age for a boy. There's that party, but birth is the ceremony, right?
Yep.
The baby shower is the party, which probably should happen afterwards. So it needs to be
probably should.
respected in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you were talking about there was something that stood out when it comes to like the labor can last a couple days, and it seems as if a lot of times people think about it and they're like, you know, everyone wants the quick fix, get it done, rip the Band-Aid off, quick type of thing, right? I mean, it's painful. Could be pain, I'm assuming, from my understanding, right? It's like when a young woman's thinking about it, maybe she's a little bit nervous or afraid or uncertain. It's uncertainty. It's a change, right? And that can be something that can have great things on the other side of uncertainty or bad things. And that's difficult, right? And oftentimes in uncertainty, the more scary terminal ending of like death is actually an easier thing to conceive from your imagination or your mind rather than the potential amazing things that could happen, right? So we often go towards the negative. It seems as if the mindset, it should be like, hey, we're not bypassing here. We're not some quick fix where we're not going to have it where it's going to be painless, or it's going to be this, or it's going to just be open, lock in. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
you're training. You're training.
Well,
for
it's kind of like, hey, there's no skipping this part.
Yeah.
And once you accept that, it seems like once you're accepting that as a fundamental part of this, the anxiety and fear kind of goes over. Or it seems to be like you can be like, okay, this has to occur. So it's like, buckle up. Let's make it comfortable. Let's make it beautiful. Let's make it fun. And if it's not, it's not. But we're going to do the best we can, right?
Fun is a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Because laughter raises oxytocin in the body. The happy hormone actually makes your body more relaxed and it makes the process more easy.
Yeah.
That's why romance should be included in the childbirthing experience if you have the opportunity to do that. You also joy, laughter, having fun. But I will leave you with this too. I've asked many clients of mine, what was the worst part? The fear of giving birth and the pain that would come of it, or the actual physical pain of it. And they all said the worst part was the fear.
Yeah.
It was the mental agony of not knowing what to expect. And oftentimes when they're on the other side of the labor, if they've had a natural labor where they actually got to move their bodies and they had a smooth recovery where they were supported and loved and listened to, that's what made it easier, with less postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. But it's often like the support around you and not having all this fear mongering that makes the process of pregnancy, labor, and postpartum much more easier.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And so I guess the next piece here is when we're thinking about, okay, baby's born, amazing. We're already in a place in which you should be understanding that there's a lot of things that you may or may not be consenting to given where you're giving birth at. What in that kind of critical time period right after baby's born, what are the things that women should be aware of and understand when it comes to making sure, like, what's up with that heel prick thing? What's up with like the injections that are going on? It
goes really deep.
Yeah. So whatever you could say on just like a high level there, and maybe before I want to get into that, and I think that's a really good place to maybe take a break real quick.
Yeah.
And we'll come back in and get into that, and then we'll go into a little bit of homeschooling as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Cool. All right. Well, welcome back here, guys. And I think now we want to go ahead and start talking a little bit more about some things that we want to leave open-ended. And kind of, I think me and Yaz realized we definitely need a part 2 to this podcast. So kind of thankful that you got to the restroom, got some water. Now let's kind of snap back into it here and tell you where you need to start doing your research at as well. So now that we've kind of got to the process, Yaz, of like, okay, birth, those things, what are some of the key things that people should kind of be aware about and start to focus doing their research towards when thinking about, do we want to get vaccines? What's going on there? What's going on with some of the stuff that's happening to baby right after birth and some of that other medical care that people are now having to think about? And then we can go into kind of the homeschooling and raising them a little bit more as well.
Yeah. So definitely, like, even the decisions that are still being made in the hospital during labor or at home during labor afterwards, it's decisions to be made about the placenta, since there's so much, truth now showing up about how placentas are being used, which is essentially a organ that belongs to the mother, and it is the life force that gave life to your child. So in my culture and many indigenous cultures, we honor the placenta as a part of the mother and the child, and we plant it. And whenever the child might need something, whether it's energetic medicine or nutrition, we would have the placenta planted where a fruit tree may be growing, and we would turn to that tree for medicine or wisdom. And so, depending on your culture, those are things you need to make decisions of, because in modern day, you have institutions that are selling placentas for $50,000, and we don't know what they're doing with them. I mean, we do know, do your research, but there's things that are being created from placentas without people's consent, and it could actually benefit the mom's body, or just their energetic healing process to actually take the placenta home and do with it what they feel they need to or should. Decisions like circumcision, very, very important for both mother and father to, be made aware of the psychological and traumatic impact that it has on a baby boy. So I know that's, again, dependent on your religious beliefs and your cultural beliefs, but knowing the effects of it on the child beyond what your traditions may be is very important. Okay. Those things are now being spoken about a lot more vocally and through social media. So that's the great thing about it, that you can go on any social media platform and research about it or ask questions about it, and people will give you information or resources. But there's books, there's information out there. Other things is the vaccine things or the jabs that you mentioned. Those conversations are also important to have as a partner. In fact, in my personal experience, it is something that I realize people need to have when they're dating. Conversations about life, creation, health, medical practices, life and death practices. Those conversations should be had with anybody that you're having sex with, that you're possibly co-creating a life with. Because when these things happen and they alter your perception of life and they stop you in your tracks, they can really take a toll in people's experiences. They can affect you. They can affect relationships. So these are things that you should absolutely, as an adult, start to educate yourself on. Because if you're going to just do things to your child just because people tell you to without the proper knowledge, and then maybe regret it later when you see the implications or side effects or adverse effects that it may have on your child's body, that can, again, affect you moving on, right? And so these things are now being more discussed, being more like they're shining a light on it more, especially after 2020. And why are we doing things like vaccinating our children so early? The vaccinations that me and you got when we were children is not the same that they have now. There's different chemicals in it. There's the vaccine schedule has been incredibly increased, in a not positive way. Like the things that are on this vaccine schedule, they'll put like 60 vaccines in the first year of life, whereas maybe when we were children, we probably got maybe 10, or I don't know. But yeah, it's important to read the inserts of vaccine the same way you read the nutrition label, the same way you read a little, medicine over the counter when your child is sick, right? Do you not read the back and see what are the side effects? Why not do that for vaccines? You know, why not do that for formula? Why not research who are the owners, the manufacturing companies that are creating these things that are you're putting in your body that can absolutely have, you know, harming effects to your nervous system, to your fertility as a baby. So if we do that for ourselves as adults, then you should absolutely, you know, be responsible enough to do that for your children. And, you know, we already know some of these things that are now being very much like they're shining a light on this, that some of these vaccines have formaldehyde, right? Embalming fluid, right? Why would you pump that into a baby? Why would you pump aborted fetus particles into your baby and not, you know, not wonder that it won't affect the nervous system, you know, or cause neurological disorders? The same way research mad cow disease, where at some point, I guess they didn't have, or they were just trying to be cheap to feed cows for mass production, that they ended up feeding them dead cows. And then they all got really sick with mad cow disease. That's what they called it. So now, why would you inject a child with other children?
Yeah,
That sounds crazy.
it for real. And I think this is all areas where it's things that we heard possibilities. Is it bad? Is it not?
Exactly.
I'm not sure.
Research.
But I think it's important that these things are brought up, because I was watching a Vox video on vaccines, about child vaccination, and it was to be pro-vaccine, you know, and however people are, it was, you know, trying to dismiss a lot of the false things about vaccines, talking about the vaccination schedule is like thoroughly researched and blah, blah, blah. And it is one of the things that I thought was so important was it said, not vaccinating your children is gambling with their lives. Every claim that is made like that needs to be, you need to remember, I think it's important that people remember that the opposite and the reciprocal claim can be made.
Exactly.
Vaccinating your children could be gambling with their lives.
Yep.
Just because you make a statement and you say you're the expert,
Doesn't make it true.
It doesn't make it true, man. And the thing is I'm linguistically savvy enough to understand that we need to be careful playing word games here, you know? And it's like, you need to realize that injecting your child with some type of thing that was created by a pharmaceutical company that has the best interests of the collective. Well, honestly, the pharmaceutical company has shareholders, equity. What's the thing that they're looking for, right? They want, are the shareholders happy, right?
Yeah.
The shareholders are happy when you make sure you can make a viable case to be able to get the government to go ahead and start funding certain things that you're doing. And now you lock up government contracts, and you're going to get consistent income because it's like it's a need now. It's a need. You've created big demand for it. And so I think that's important for people to start to understand, is that maybe when you're thinking about herd immunity, maybe your individual child doesn't need to have a 70%, 20%, 30% likelihood of developing something, because it gives the greater collective a 90% immunity to this. And my family is not statistics here where, you know, and I'm just going to say, I believe my kid to based off of how we're approaching it, to be defiant of a lot of the statistics, because the statistics presume a standard American diet. They presume a standard American this. They presume
Lifestyle.
all the other standard. So sorry, I think we're already outside of that, you know? And also it presumes that a lot of these things are accurate and predicated on legit census data, legit self-reporting, just look into how we actually cultivate what we call science as the concrete hard fact now. And I think we realize that science is becoming a lot of times like a cult dogmatic belief. And the new religion, I think, that's coming into place for a lot of people when they're seeking a lot of spiritual stuff is the, science. It's funny, Scientology, but it's not related to that. It's more just like people are saying, oh, the science says. Well, what happens when you start to manipulate the science to make it so that the science says exactly what the larger systems, for-profit corporations, government, all this stuff wants you to do, right? So I say that just because it's important that people start to research these things on their own. I don't think we're here to make claims about, what is correct, what is right, what is not. But you have the ability to do your research and your ability to make decisions once you do that research, right? And so you talked about some huge important things, that thinking about circumcision, thinking about vaccination, thinking about how you're just going to go ahead and deal with a lot of your rights, your placenta. That's your property.
Your property.
You don't get to just
And you better put it on paper. It's your
Yeah.
property.
Yeah. And so these are important decisions that people need to start to think about, and to really start understanding what autonomy is, and what, you are, and where people have the ability to take from you and to do things, your child and your rights with the child. Super important. So
Can I mention propaganda too?
Yeah, go
Because
ahead.
what you're mentioning too is how people just kind of fall into the I'm doing it because they told me to. And the propaganda is such a big part of business, right? The marketing is so important part of business. And we've been told that these things are necessary for our children upon being born. Because what? Because before that, what do we have? The midwives wasn't injecting people with anything. They was giving you a clean blanket, a hot soup, and sending you on your way, making sure that you had somebody that's going to come tomorrow and check in the baby and have family support, right? And so one of the things that often pops up is like the propaganda of these certain things just to make a profit. And during the 1930s or 40s, I believe it was, it's in one of my texts by, it's called Immaculate Conception by Dr. Ali Muhammad. He's one of the texts that we actually study in my intuitive birth worker program. He mentions how they promoted smoking as normal while pregnant. Like they even had full-blown ads with a woman with a belly and her smoking. And they even have a picture of John F. Kennedy's wife who was pregnant and she was smoking. And
explains a lot now.
I mean, it's wild because to even have somebody of that quote unquote elitism or status at that time to be doing that, even she fell for the trap. You know what I'm saying? And then to look at their family now, where you have the younger, I can't say the younger guy.
I know who
but
you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't even know his name, but the one who's in office now, I don't want to give people like names, but the one
know
who's
who
in
you're talking
office now, who's anti-jab, who's anti-vax, who's more in the holistic mind frame of we need to be more aware of what we're putting in our bodies. It's pretty interesting because maybe that was where it came from, where that reluctantness came from of like, what the heck were we pushing upon earlier that we normalized it? So my thing is people should always study the history of where things are coming from. Because even if you want to study contraception and you think that what's in the over the counter today is cool, it may not be the best for you, but maybe what it comes from, more than likely, it's going to come from nature and it'd be more susceptible to your body.
Wow.
So everything should be studied
Powerful.
from conception.
I love that you went from the concept of thinking about a lot of this stuff can be propaganda, and how we've been propagandized in so many times, and so many times we've been propagandized in so many different areas. We have really been. And so you said to look up the history, which is important, not only to look up the history to understand how we've been propagandized throughout history and what were the incentives going back, but also to realize that at some point there was probably a seed of truth to some of these things, and maybe we can find that seed literally, right? So maybe, some of these things like tobacco, oh, it's so bad for you. How much is there a medicinal, ceremonial, spiritual use of tobacco,
Exactly.
right? So it's like we have to start understanding that not only are we being propagandized, but things are being inverted and perverted.
Yeah.
And so it's like almost a misuse of the traditional, ancestral, indigenous, real power that these things hold, because power doesn't come from some new person with the science and this and that, whatever. Power originates from this earth, from like power is like all from, I would say, that higher creationary source, right? And any misuse is just people don't make rivers, they make dams and harness the energy from the river.
Exactly.
Right? Don't forget where that river was made, where it came from. Came from nature, came from Mother Nature, right?
It was there before us.
And it was there before. So just because you made the dam and now you're getting all this hydroelectric power
Doesn't
and
give you rights to the water.
100%. Yeah. And I think it also, you don't get the ego now that you're the creator of all of this. You're siphoning that energy that's already here. So it's very important to remember that a lot of times these pharmaceuticals, these interventions, even the propaganda, the psychological warfare and the psychological manipulation, that requires a degree of power And that's not coming from nothing. It's coming from at a lot of these claims. There are seeds of truth that have been perverted and twisted. So, get it right, get it tight, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
And
But
I
let's go
love that
back
you
on
said that too. Like we're essentially we're co-creating. And so although we might be hearing some of these things that could feel a little heavy or overwhelming or like, oh my gosh, we have to make so much decisions and everything affects everything, it does. But this is the beauty of our existence, that we get to choose. You get to choose. That's all this is about. That's all my work is about. I literally, like, one of my mottos in my early inception of my business has been mother's options. Having the options to birth your baby, your purpose, or both. What are you doing? How are you doing it? What are the choices that you're making are creating your well-being, whether you're grateful for what you're saying or doing, or you regret it later, or you feel ashamed of it later. You just have to be proud that and acknowledge that you've had the power to choose. And knowing that you have the options. Don't just seek over there for an answer when you can look there, back there, and then feel grateful for making that decision. And then the responsibility of the repercussions that come from it is yours, nobody else's.
Yeah, for real. And kind of speaking on that as well, is like the concept of taking accountability and everything is like, it doesn't just stop at pregnancy. It doesn't just stop at once the baby's born. This is the evolution of, now you're a mother, you're a father, you're a parent, you're a teacher. Now you're guiding this soul. You've guided it through the womb, and in the womb, through the birth canal, into life in this, earthly plane. And now you got to start learning math and learning these things and boundaries and respect. When are you hungry? All these things, right? Language, all this stuff. And I think that is where people then have the question of like, how are we educating our children now in the truth, knowing that a lot of the things we learned weren't the truth. And I think one of the areas, speaking to propaganda and stuff, is the education system. Yeah. The education system is a tool to propagandize and to educate children with a worldview that's beneficial for a certain group of people, so that they can be stuck in a mindset of trauma-based fear manipulation, so that they can believe that they're not enough if they don't score right on the grades. They can, if they don't sit down and act right in class, then they get diagnosed with these psychiatric things like ADHD, all this stuff. And it's like, this is a huge thing that's going on. And I think everyone is understanding. Now we see the value of, I'll speak from this. It's like the value of a college degree now is almost worthless, really.
Right.
I went to an Ivy League school, and I came out and I entered into the job market, and I was making decent money, but like, that's because I found a job in a niche area. Most people who graduate from a non-Ivy League, non-top 10, top 20 school are not finding jobs. And they're not finding jobs that are giving them a salary that would be more than if they didn't go to school.
Yeah.
So you ended up going to school, and you come out, and now you're working at the same Starbucks that you were working at while you were in school. That's tough, right? And so it's to say, the education system at the highest levels, right? Ultimately, you have to measure it based off of what's the end result here. Like, this is an investment. You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars.
To get that back.
Yeah. So what's going on here?
Yeah.
It's no longer yielding an end result that makes it so that this is a profitable investment. So just like a lot of the other things, I think the entire education system that we've been fed to believe in, like, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get good grades, get a good job, you'll be good. No. Right? That's not the case, and it's very clear. And people in my demographic and age group see that, and people younger are like, bro, we already hate school. Why are we gonna do more school when it literally doesn't do anything for us, right? So that's coming to an end. The entire education system schools are closing down. The traditional way is just, it's done, and it's pretty terminal, I would say. So with that, I think there's such a lot of conversation to be had around what we're doing now to educate our children, to educate the youth. And I think we have to do another podcast to really go into all this, because we absolutely should. But at a high level, for people who are curious, who maybe have young kids and they're like, what's up with homeschooling? Can I do that? Is that a possibility? Why would I do that? Could you just highlight some of the major reasons why a parent should consider looking into homeschooling thinking about stranger school, what's going on with all this stuff, right? Like, talk to us about that, because I want people to be prompted to go research this.
Yeah, I call school stranger school, especially for children, because children, they need to bond with their mother at least for the first 3 years of their life. Although they don't they're still energetically connected to the mother that birthed them up until 7 years of age. This is why in many cultures around the world, they still co-sleep with their children up to 7 years old, because they don't understand that they're separate from the mother's body, right? 7 months, they still feel that they're a part of the mother's body. Energetically, 7 years, right? There's something really powerful about the number 7. If you know, you know. But it's so important to keep your children close, because they're absorbing everything. Even if they're not necessarily learning, they're copying everything. So oftentimes what happens is that when you put your child in daycare, or you put them in a kindergarten too early and all these things, now they're picking up the habits and belief systems and behaviors of everybody else around them, except the people that they belong to at the house. And then we wonder why there's so much estranged relationships between a parent and a child. You don't raise that. You're not rearing the child. Somebody else in a school is rearing them. And in fact, it's such an abandonment process that begins at such a young age. And if you look at this society, because we operate the way we do, everybody that suffers from like these anxieties or these depressions or this lack of identity, it's because at some point, often early on, they felt abandoned. They felt abandoned. So even if you're in school, because God forbid your parents have to work and there's nobody home that can homeschool you, there's still a lack of connection by the time you come home from school. You're too tired to put your children to bed, so you just make everything quick, fast, easy, home, eat, homework, go to bed. Like, I've seen this, and it's sad, because it doesn't have to be this way. If you're family planning, or at least if you're conscious enough to change your life, which I did, I altered my life as soon as I realized I was pregnant, which wasn't planned. I altered my life, because even since I was young, obviously at 13, I was like, wow, a pregnancy can happen at any time. I want to make sure that I'm in an industry that respects mothers and children, and I can bring my child to my work. That was my mindset. I didn't know where I was going to end up with that, but that was my mindset. And I also grew up with a mother who was a teacher. So I technically, in my elementary school days, my mom was in the building. So I kind of still felt like if anything happened, mom was right there. And so that was an early imprint for me, even though I did feel abandoned. Absolutely. I wanted to be at home with my mom or home with my dad. But there was a safety there for me. And so it's so important to recognize that human connection begins to sever when you start to now put your child in childcare centers or in schools too early. Most cultures around the world that are more family centered, that are more harmonious with nature and the natural ways of life and wellness, they would put their children in schools or institutional programs after 7 years old. Yeah. And it is our duty and our responsibility. If you are going to co-create a life, you should be 100% responsible for that life, because you are. You're responsible for them at 9 months. You're responsible for them at 40 years. You will pick up the phone if your child is doing something crazy and calls you for help. Mommy, get me out of this jam. Whether you're 40 years old or 12. So yeah, you're responsible for them. So why wouldn't you want to have full input on what your child learns, what they are exposed to? You can't do that if you put them in an institution that you're not a part of or you're not in control of. At home, you get to teach them early on. And from my experience, my child was potty trained before 1 year old, completely out of diapers or cloth diapers by 1, right? He was eating with me by himself with his utensils, because he was so independent in that way, because he was breastfed, but he was eating solids by 6-7 months very independently. He was very courageous. He was cooking with me by the time he can stand. You know, like these things, because we were never separated for more than an hour. And that only happened once, because I went to the store and he stayed with my sister and my brother-in-law. And we lived together. So they were like auntie and uncle right there. But I saw how secured he was. We co-slept in a king-size bed. So he was always he knew mommy was there, so he was always able to venture out and be himself and try things and just be more just in tune with himself, because there wasn't somebody controlling him, telling him no all the time, but he was always safe, right? And that is the benefit that you give your children when you're in close proximity with them all the time when they're that young, because it just, they're gonna separate from you when they get older. The only difference is do you want to have a healthy and close relationship with them when they're older or not? Because those decisions are made when you decide to put them in childcare places or when you decide to homeschool.
Yeah.
And homeschool is not school inside your home. Homeschool is teaching them just how to be little humans.
Yeah, that's a huge thing you said, and like respecting their autonomy. You're raising these are small human beings that are learning their way in the world and their body's growing, but that soul that's in them, I mean, it's the same, you know, to quote Aaliyah, age ain't nothing but a number per se. And that same soul that you are now having these critical thoughts of as an adult, it was in that little child too.
Yes.
You know, and it just was like trying to make sense. Like it was probably you're probably 2 years old having complex thoughts about certain things, but you just don't have the language to articulate it. So you're just, you know, crying a baby, but the baby knows. Right? The soul didn't just like somehow one day it turned 5 and then it just started being able to, it just was able to articulate and express it. And so I think that's just so powerful. Another piece is like we talked about that separation component. That's huge. And the concept of the trauma that occurs is now the child is in an environment in which you said there's 30 kids in an area. And maybe you spoke about this in another video. Is like there's 20 to 30 kids and there's one teacher, right?
That you don't even know, a stranger.
You don't know her. How old is she? 25, 23, never had kids before, or she does, and she's giving her kids to another place so she can go take care of your kids. She's not invested in the spiritual well-being. She's not spiritually connected to these children. I mean, that's a huge component, right? Like there's a lot of stuff. Like every child is unique and different, and they have their own energetic imprints, and that teacher is going to think, is the kid fed? Am I going to get sued? You know, is whatever. It's
There's
like,
too much that she's managing. And we criticize mothers for doing things a little bit offbeat.
With one kid.
With one child. How y'all not criticizing a teacher with 30 children? And even if she says she cares about the children and she's invested in the children and she's a mother herself and maybe she's a 50-year-old and she's done this before, so you know she thinks she know. Yeah. That's great, but sweetheart, you have 30 children that all come from different environments, different cultures, different spirits.
Like, stop the cat, bro.
No.
Like, stop the cat. Like, what are you talking about? Has anyone who's putting their kids in school and is like, my child is totally good being managed by a single teacher with even 10 other kids, 15 other kids, 20 other kids, 30 other kids, go take 20 kids, 3 years old, 5 years old, and you go try and manage them. Not just at a party. Go at a birthday, kid's birthday party. Get 20 kids to do anything. See what that's like. It is chaos. And you know what's actually crazy is how much they will trigger you. If you're someone who is in control, they'll trigger you. Talk about your own emotional maturity. I'm sorry, man, but not everyone has done this work. You have 20 kids pulling at your leg, crying, saying I'm hungry. You're going to break. Overwhelmed. You're going to psychologically break. Yeah.
The more perplexed thing for me is, again, I'm always focused on what is the child experiencing from that little mind. And a child, when they're 1, 2, 3, we the parents, right? If you're doing it, you're teaching them boundaries. You're teaching them physical control of their bodies, or learning how to potty train, eat, if they need to regurgitate, what to do, how to behave, how to clean themselves, how to communicate that. And then all of a sudden, now I'm also teaching you, like, your body is you have to be autonomous, protect your body. You know, don't let nobody just touch you in your private parts and stuff like that. Yeah. And then you're also teaching them about strangers, as in, like, some people are, you know, safe strangers. Some people are danger strangers. You're right. Yeah. That word, stranger danger. Yeah. And then you teach them this at home for 3 years, 4 years. And then all of a sudden you put them in a stranger school. Think about what that says to a child, right? What's the cause to become there? That's perplexing. Like, so you told me to only see you, my family, as my safety, but then you put me in a whole building full of people I don't know. And when I cry about it, you just say, I'm going to be okay. When I tell you I don't feel safe, or I'm not heard, or my teacher is not listening to me, my son has said that to me, right? Because he's in an institution that I did not consent for him to be in. So I'm navigating that through custody and having to,
Or when he has to use the restroom and he can't.
and where he has to use the restroom. And I even see that my child has changed the way he feeds or drinks his water, because now he cannot overconsume because he has to sit in class all day. So that's even already affecting the child's health.
Yeah.
Because if you're not drinking your water because you're not allowed to, because then
You want to go pee too
then
many
you'll
times.
have to pee too much, which naturally a human body should probably be peeing every 3 hours. God forbid that throws off the schedule of a teacher or school or a system. But now you're telling our children to deprive themselves of their human nature, of their human instinct to detox their body naturally, or hydrate their body naturally, or nourish their body naturally, all because they have to adhere to a schedule of a whole day in a school.
Yeah. Real talk.
It's deplorable, in my opinion.
100%.
Because if I had a child, I have to create a wisdom for that child, curriculum for that child. It's my responsibility to take care of that child.
Mm-hmm.
How am I giving that responsibility to somebody else? How?
Absolutely. And I'll just cook a little bit on the psychological component of this.
Please.
Is that you are removing that child from the place in which it feels safe and secure, like you talked about. So that's already that attachment, like detached from their safety. And you're putting them in a place in which they've experienced this trauma. They're now forced to abide by these rules, and they're not in any comfortable. There's no mom, there's no dad, there's no safety here. It's stranger danger. And now they're forced to learn to listen to the teacher, to listen to the administrator there, and that what they say is right. But when they say something that goes against what mom and dad taught, when they say something that goes against what their own intuition, their own heart that feels, listen to the authority figure, listen to the teacher, listen to the administrator. What they say is right. You're wrong. No. And then what is that? You're automatically setting the stage for trauma-based indoctrination and propaganda, being propagandized. So now when they say, yeah, Columbus discovered all this in 1492. Yeah, the X, Y, and Z thing about your history, where you come from, your ancestry, how things are supposed to develop. Yeah, what happened on Building 7? I don't know. Crazy things. You start talking about all this stuff, and they indoctrinate the history. They indoctrinate where they come from, who you are, the society, the hierarchy, the system, everything you believe. You don't get good grades on tests. It's because you're dumb. That's what the administrator said. That's what the teacher said. That's what the authority said.
And I had my 6-year-old niece in kindergarten or first grade come to me on September 11th, and she's an Aquarius, so she's very inquisitive about life, death, everything. She's like, we learned about 9/11. What happened? Why was it so sad? A lot of people died. I was like 5 years old, or maybe 4 or 5 years old when 9/11 happened. 9/11? No, I'm lying. I don't know. 9/11.
But
what year was it? Anyway,
it's just to say that a lot of these things.
I was young.
Yeah.
Why are you teaching that to this 6-year-old? What is she going to do about that? Mm-hmm. She's 6. Why does she need to know that history, of that terrifying history that happened? She doesn't even live in the state of New York. What is a 6-year-old going to do with that trauma that you just gave her?
The tortoise.
Unnecessary.
The tortoise beat the hare in the race. Saying that doesn't mean anything until you have the backstory, right? Which means you have to understand everything, so you know when you see the end result why it is. Yeah. What are they doing? They're using history to be able to propagandize people, so they build the framework for the story so that they can have the end result of what's going on here to prove their point, so that we understand why the world is as it is, and we don't think, and we don't critically think, and we don't understand, hold on, maybe that's not why it should be. Maybe that's not what happened, right? And so that's where it's like, not only is it a sense of security, is it a no spiritual connection there.
Yeah.
We're seeing trauma, we're seeing indoctrination.
Suppression.
Yeah. And now it's to say, what if what's said in that school is directly antithetical to the morals and values that you uphold in your household? What if actually they're saying, hey, if mom or dad does this, they're bad. They're bad and wrong.
So you see how it separates even the connection and the morality between the child and the parents.
Yeah.
Because now what's happening in the school, the child is learning something, and then even if the parents are not teaching that and to the child, or they have a different view, like you said, now there's almost like this disconnection between the child and the parent. I'm not saying it always happens, but it can create conflict of like, you don't understand, my teacher said this, and the teacher is with the child most of the time. So the teacher kind of has a lot more influence than the parent, unless the parent is really being intentional about parenting.
Yeah. And that's the thing where it's like, if you really want to protect your family, you really want to protect your child, you want to protect their mind, you want to protect their hearts, you want to protect their spirits. And sending them off to a school, stranger school, sending them off to a school that has a lot of other motives, that isn't caring about the individual of your individual child as much, it's probably not the best thing to do. And we see that the long-term benefit of going through the traditional education system is yielding no rewards for the child in their kind of overall financial well-being, right? So what's going on here? And I think that's a question that people should start to research, because the incentives for why, the story we learned as to why you're supposed to do this is starting to fall apart and has a lot of holes in it. So it's time that we get to the real story. And I think this should encourage people to start to look into this and research it a lot more. And coming from, I see, people in my family being homeschooled, and it's like, I know you as a homeschool mom, I know you advocate for it. And there's so many other people. This is a big call right now in the world where it's like, take your children out of their schools, because they're not there for you.
Yeah.
They're there for them, the systems, the systems that have lied to you. And so it's like, start to reclaim that protecting your family starts by protecting your child's mind and protecting them so they don't have trauma, and so that they're raised right and they're shown love always. And they don't think that this random stranger is who they have to listen to.
Yeah. And wealthy people homeschool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Wealthy people, they form their life around their children and their children's children. They plan 100 years ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's important that we take back that autonomy and know that we are living in different times where we get to choose, and we get to be entrepreneurs, or we get to come together with people and work in different spaces that can be more family centered. And you can decide that before you start a family. But it is important that we know that we have those options now.
Yeah.
And now we are being incentivized more. Even in this administration, people are being incentivized to be more independent of the systems. That's why the systems are falling apart.
Yep.
So that's the encouragement. What are you going to do about it?
And now with the limitless now we see with so much options, so we're opening it and our eyes are being awake to our freedom, our autonomy, and our choice. Now the decision is, okay, what will you choose? And I think that's why it's so important that we have you and your voice heard here, and people like you and people who are coming from a background like you are, and that you're educating so many people to be able to propagate this knowledge and information at scale, boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So with that, I just want to say thank you, Yaz. Thank you, Y the G. I appreciate you. That's your camera right there. I want to open it up for you to tell the people about what you're doing, where they can find you, if they want to know more, if they want to get more resources, information. If you could just let them know where they can find you on social, all that stuff, what you got going on for the intuitive birth working classes and all that. That's your camera, and feel free to take it away.
Yes. You can find all of my work on my website. It's ytheg.com, ytheg.com. I'm available on all social media platforms as Y the G or Y the G Bay. And you can look up my intuitive birth worker program, which we are taking enrollment now for our January 2026 cohort. We also have a postpartum program that we are releasing, an herbalism program that we're releasing for all my agriculture girlies. And my memoir is available for pre-order. My memoir is the story of my life, of how I became the birth worker and all the things that I had to come to reality with, of my purpose. That was my cause to become. Becoming a birth worker was something that chose me. It was a calling, bestowed upon my life. And I've created or wrote my memoir depicting that story of how I got there. So
that's amazing. That's awesome. And I would just like to say, I encourage all of you guys to go check out Y the G on all the socials, and to use this as a place where maybe she doesn't resonate with you. That's totally fine. But maybe she can point you in the right direction of people that she knows. And then from researching that, you can find what does resonate with you. This is the Wild West now when it comes to deciphering and determining what's right. And the thing is it's because it's about you and your own personal autonomy and sovereignty. And it's like, you're the one that makes the final decision. There's no longer anybody external. Everything's AI, chat GPT, everything's fake and distorted and propaganda and misinformation and disinformation. So what is right is what you have to go within and find what's right and to make those decisions. So it was just an honor for me to have you here. I really appreciate you.
Same.
Yeah.
Same to you.
And
Thank you.
There's another podcast that we have to go in for sure. So
Great conversation.
Awesome. And to kind of send us off here, my little tagline is, thank you guys for watching. Again, I'm your host, Elijah Robert-Mahdi Soto, and we're blessed and grateful, and stay the course.